go off what Marley just said, the whole thing with like specialty like popcorn buckets per theater, like it's one of those things like before, like, oh, that was kind of a specialty thing, but now it's like every movie is doing. I remember like Blue Beetle had one. It was like the Blue Beetle mobile, and then there's the infamous popcorn bucket from Dune 2, which looks like a fucking butthole, like prolapsed anus, basically. And then
I wish that one was just the worm, and it's just like you just had the just big old sandworm that you were just eating out of.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Was it really? Where the hell was that?
Like,
that wasn't at my Regal.
It was like it looked like a prolapsed asshole, and then you look in, it had the teeth, so you just reach in for like, just gotta fist it to get that popcorn.
So when you just be pouring that popcorn in your mouth at the end, just like ah.
Yeah, however you do it. Yeah, that's
just remember you got to use that extra butter to make that transition from popcorn to mouth even easier.
It has some teeth in there too, so like when you go in there, you're like, "Oh, damn it!" Like, and then like she clamp down every once in a while too. Got a little motorized action in there, just so like you've had enough popcorn.
But Marley, you were saying
the movie hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, you just come out with a jacked arm by the time you're done. Marley, you were saying the like Ghostbusters one had like I didn't know about this, but Slimer has one. And what about Slimer?
Slimer has like a dump truck ass where everyone is talking about like how thick Slimer is, and I'm just like, in 2024, this is where we're coming to. We're just sexualizing like I don't want to like defame.
There's weirder
Slimer,
shit.
but
I'm not gonna say like I'm not gonna say I look at Slimer and say I get it, but at the exact same time, I'm like, there's weirder shit out there. So I'm like, sure, why not? By this point, and this generation seems to be a lot more into ass, which is a good thing. So it's gonna show through Slimer, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody was probably turned on from Slimer from the initial '84 watching of it. They're like, you know what? If I had my own Green Man in my house running around, I'll tell him what.
He's so slippery and he's just so like jiggly. Oh fuck!
And Slimer just doesn't care about like anyone around him, and that's what this kind of generation growing up. It's just like I can get on TikTok and just like say whatever I want and be free of that, and that's kind of like what Slimer's all about. I would like to see the Slimer TikTok. If someone wants to create that from Sony Pictures, I would like to see like a Slimer TikTok page. But yeah,
exists. Want to know who it is?
Who is? Wait,
Mikado Avocado. There you go. That's your Slimer right there. Just someone who's doing like mukbangs basically, and just jamming their fucking face and farting into the camera. That's Slimer. Just spray paint him green.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And speaking of fun times with Sony Pictures, we decided, hey, you know what? It's the big old 600th episode of Old Man Orange podcast, which means it's been over 11 years or something like that. Maybe even 12, you don't know. But we're like, we're going to get Marley on here. And you know what Marley really likes just as much as we kind of like is old Spider-Man movies. And I was like, hey, let's do Spider-Man 1 and 2. And then Ryan is all, we're going to do Spider-Man 1 and 2. Why don't we do 3 as well? It's weird to not do the fucking trilogy. I'm like, yeah, well... Sure, okay, I wish this was brought up earlier in the week, but fuck it, I'll try to fit in Spider-Man 3 as well. I'm like...
To be fair, Spider-Man 1 and 2 is just kind of sprung on just the 2 days previously. You're like, well, might as well do 3. I just by happenstance be watching 1 and 2, so you kind of got me the right end. So for me, it was like, well, I'm already partway done with 2, so I can knock out 3 tomorrow.
Well, I'll have to say, if you're going to go all the way, you might as well go all the way.
For 600, yeah.
600 episodes in, you might as well just do all 3 at this point. And by the way, congratulations, by the way, on 600 episodes on Old Man Orange. So,
thanks, man. Yeah, we're happy to have you for 600 because you were back when we were all still living in Sonora. You were our most frequent guest, and we liked having you on. And I know it's been more sparing over the years because of life, but we're happy to have you on for this one. And it wasn't even really planned to be 600. Spencer just said, we should probably do Spider-Man for like 600. Like, when's 600? I'm like, that's in 3 days. Oh, fuck. Just after a while, you don't pay attention anymore,
It's funny you say that because like just recently on my podcast, the Real Livers podcast, we just passed like a episode 100. And I think like it's funny because I had the exact same like realization where it's like, oh, I hit 100. And I think like I'm trying to think like what the episode actually was. It was like some offshoot episode where we're just, I think we were talking about like the Oscars or something like that. And I didn't even mention that that it was episode 100. So nice to that with episode 600, you guys are we're going in with a bang. So
I think episode 300 was the last one where it was like, wow, 300, and everything else up to, and they're like, oh yeah, another one of these, cool, and it's still happy to have you. I think it's might as well try and do a little something special with it. But at the same time, I want to say I've been just totally blanking out, and I feel like an asshole because I've been on your show a couple of times. I don't think I've really talked about it that much on my show, and I feel really bad about that because I had a fun time. It'd be like weeks apart or days apart. And it would just slip my mind. But yeah, no, Marley has a really awesome show, and why don't you just, because are you still doing the Letterboxd countdown? I know you're taking breaks between them.
Yeah, I'm taking breaks. Like right now, it's about a 2-month break, but I'm currently covering all the movies in the Letterboxd Top 250 on the Real Lovers podcast. So far, we've covered about 25-ish movies so far, and then every Monday I do like a kind of like an offshoot like episode where it's usually like 20 or 30 minutes talking about new releases and stuff like that. So, but yeah, if you like me talking about movies like here on the Old Man Orange, you're probably gonna like the Real Lovers podcast as well. So.
But it's also a little bit more eloquent, a little bit more structured than Old Man Orange. So there's that.
You're giving me a lot of credit, right? You're giving me a lot of credit, but thank you very much. So,
yeah. Old Man Orange is always a classic. We watch something, we read something, we maybe play something, and then just kind of go into it and discuss it. Like I've always liked to say it. It's kind of like the equivalent of like you and your buddies leaving the movie theater, and then you just have that conversation afterwards. Like, and it's not necessarily structured. It's more free balling, and you're just talking about all the things you liked in it, the goofy stuff in between, and then, with some tangents and stuff that's kind of related to it and so on. And I think that makes perfect for when we're diving into Spider-Man, because it's one of those ones like this movie, like for all three of us, it's like that big, oh yeah, let's do our Spider-Man fucking show and tell. I got my DVD double one. Remember when they used to give out like the super special edition stuff on like every film? And this is a perfect example of how you can know when it stopped, because then ooh, get some Ultimate Spider-Man in there, and then you got Spider-Man 2 with this classic super special edition DVD. And then when you get the Spider-Man 3, yeah, Marley's got the Blu-ray. He's just one-upping me there. Spider-Man 3 comes in, and then they're like, you know what? Fuck you guys in that extra disc. You're going to pay extra for it. Here's just a regular version. Here's in a Blockbuster case, too. Like, that goes to show that I cheapened it even more on
Blu-ray's got the 2 discs. Blu-ray's got the 2 discs.
Blu-ray's got the 2. Well, I know there was one, but like that was a period where they're like, oh yeah, the average person's buying these 2 discs, and that second disc has never been touched. Only the people that like movies a lot go for that.
Yeah, and after a while, I think number 3, I got what was the special edition by then, because there was a point where they all got the specials features. Then, like you said, they used to like, if you want that extra disc, fuck you got to pay extra. It also comes with a little cardboard sleeve, and then
that's gonna cost you extra.
And especially if it's textured with the logo or some shit, So, but no, I remember. Yeah, I have all 3 of them. I don't know if I brought all 3 of them with me. I at least brought 1 and 2 with me, but at the same time,
shots fired for 3. So
well, no, we'll get to 3. No, here's the thing. Regardless,
see my original comment when I said let's do 1 and 2. See, it all made logical sense then.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I still like 3. Decisions were made, confusing decisions, but I still like 3, and I also think it's just one of those little like shots of nostalgia. It's one of those things, at some point you like it, then at some point you come back to it. It's a little bit like, that was weird. Maybe this isn't as good as I remember. But then you watch it again and you still see all its flaws, but then you kind of see the fun and some of the other things that that movie does get enough credit for in some ways. But I think we should probably just it doesn't have to be a strict structure of how point A to point B of each movie, but like maybe just each movie focused for a minute,
Yeah, well, I just want to say this on 3. I actually really do like 3, and this is just previous watching. It's one of those ones. Yeah, it has its couple goofy moments. That's the best thing to say. But like, I think like overall, I think like 90% of that movie is actually really solid, and I think it's actually way closer to the first 2 than like people give it credit for. Like, as I said, it's just got a couple goofy things, and they're really way towards the end. And but yeah, other than that though, well, first, we'll kind of let's go back in time a little bit, because I know that this is one of those movies that for all 3 of us, once again, it's like that humongous, like it hits like at the right time that like a Spider-Man movie could probably come out anyways, because I know that, it's 2001, you get Spider-Man 1 right then and there. And I think that was right when I was in 8th grade, if I'm not mistaken. If Ryan says he was in 8th grade, then I guess it was in 7th grade. But like,
Yeah.
that right there comes right after X-Men 2000, and X-Men 2000 was already such a big deal. Like, this was kind of getting me, like, in a sense, back into, a comic book kind of mood and vibe and all that stuff. After that little bit of a hiatus of like where you just went all anime and nothing American, and then yeah, just coming in with Spider-Man, and there's just that first movie just hits on so many other right levels, and it just continues that X-Men legacy of what's going on there, but then really creates the origin story that so many other superhero movies have followed, literally 25 years from that movie.
Well, even starting with, and I think we don't have to do it like right now for each movie, but I didn't realize at the time, but kind of Spider-Man in more ways than one, Sam Raimi Spider-Man Trilogy, in more ways than one is kind of like our generation's Christopher Reeve Superman, if you really think about it. Not just like when it came out, but also almost the way each of these movies play out from the first, the second, third. They all have very similar themes in each one. So I'm wondering if Sam Raimi was looking at a blueprint or kind of can take it into mind, not trying to copy it, but just take that in mind. Because it has that, because when you think back on like Sam Raimi Spider-Man as well as Christopher Reeves, there is some major camp, there is some major cheese, but then there's like more heart than you'd expect there to be, or at least most, I think, movie going audience would expect there to be at the time, and more thought put into the characters than people would think at the time.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. It's definitely that thing that, because of like, I think this is at that period where people kind of had like mixed feelings of sometimes a superhero kind of story. And this one just kind of hits in all the right ways where it's like, oh yeah, you got the superhero stuff. The graphics are looking good. The action feels solid. We put a big budget into it. We got a mixed match of emotions going on here. So you're getting a full-fledged adventure type film, and you could really take almost anybody to it and they could become a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I just kind of a little bit of story of how I originally saw this movie. I didn't see this movie in theaters. I don't think I ever saw this original Spider-Man in theaters. This is kind of the first movie that I've seen. I found like this movie like just laying like on my brother's desk with the word Spider-Man written on it, and I put it in the computer. And this is kind of like my introduction to like DivX movies and like movies, quote unquote. I don't know. I don't want to like defame your podcast, but this is movies that I got through other services. So like it was very
what's the word? Statute of limitations. So I think you're probably all right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? It led you into more Spider-Man stuff that you spent money on. So sometimes that's what I always just call, that's like free advertising in a way.
Yeah, for sure. And also, especially now, like where physical media is just kind of going away, like sometimes it's the only way to watch a movie. Not the case with Spider-Man, but like watching it like on like my computer and like seeing this movie for the first time, I fell in love with Spider-Man like immediately. And I've seen like some of the cartoons like here and there, but nothing really kind of like hit me like this movie, just because I liked like the charm of it. I liked this movie had humor, not like the humor that's in most Marvel movies that I hear you guys kind of like groan a lot with like with the modern MCU movies. This is like has like that Sam Raimi like esque like comedy like kind of like welded into it that I think that goes underappreciated sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. And it's the thing about kind of like the humor in this is that's something that a lot of the Christopher Reeves movies also had, like even I'd say more so in some ways. But at the exact same time, like I feel like there was good superhero movies out by this point. You had the original, you had the first two Superman movies, and then you had the Batman films, and then you had
Dolph Lundgren's Punisher.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so I'll take your word on that.
Oh shit, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing next week then.
We'll see. If I can make it for the time, we'll see. We'll see if that's even available here. I don't know. There might be laws against that. You know, like too much
He's
violence
from
here.
Europe.
So,
They got to have all the Dolph Lundgren collection there.
that's probably here. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, and then you have X-Men, but this was like, because even X-Men, you know, there's still like the line of like, you know, there's like, what would you prefer? Yellow spandex where you look at the camera? Fucking nerds! Get laid, nerds! Fuck you! We got your money! You know, it's still a good movie. You know, it had kind of some undertones of that. And even Batman kind of went in, but there's still some kind of like, we're movies. We know better. Okay, nerds? Just chill the fuck out. Where Spider-Man, and on every level, even if it's like not perfect on every level, there's no sense of like we know better than the comics. Okay, don't worry about that, because they go full comic. They go full comic in this. I mean, I think one of the few detriments of it is I wish they did something a little different with the Green Lantern costume, I mean the Green Goblin costume. But at the time when I saw it, I thought it was the most badass thing. But like at the same time though, Defoe's performance more than makes up for that.
And I think, well, sorry, Spencer, go ahead.
Okay, well, I just want to say this on the Green Lantern, or the fucking Green Goblin. Now I'm going to be calling him that the whole time. I was thinking about that when I was watching it this time, as I was like, you know what would be kind of a cool way to go about it is keep the costume exactly the same, but maybe as the movie goes on, like he goes to take the mask off, but then he sort of almost does the thing where he kind of has the painted face, you know, like almost like, you know, comic book cartoon Green Goblin thing. So then you could get a little bit more expression with, you know, Willem Dafoe. You know, because I know that was always like the Kevin Smith thing. It's like, at the very end, he's just there and they're just two guys talking in a mask. You know what I mean? You got Willem Dafoe who can just change his face to anything. I'm like, and I thought about, I'm like, you know what? That would have been kind of interesting. Is that like he's almost so committed to the character that he knows that if he loses his helmet, he still has the look going.
Their screen test of it, because originally it wasn't going to be a Power Rangers helmet. Originally, I don't know if it was meant to be a mask or if he actually turns himself into a Green Goblin, but it was made to look more organic, with a very expressive face. It actually looks really good. There's screen footage of it, but apparently whoever was wearing it, they had multiple tests, and the thing was so heavy, it really gave whoever was wearing it like a headache within like a short amount of time of wearing it. So it would have been impossible to, you know, really properly act in that thing. So they just said, well, at least with the Power Rangers motorcycle helmet, you can kind of see like the grade, you can see the mouth, even though sometimes the ADR you can see he's not really talking or whatever, and then they have the little visors that go up so you can see his eyes, so you can still kind of get some of the Defoe-ness. But I would prefer, I think, we'll keep it to this, but going to No Way Home, I think one of the smartest things they did was like have Defoe smash that helmet and it's just Defoe helmetless but wearing the rest of the costume, which is fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say like earlier is like one thing that adds to the tone of this first movie is Danny Elfman's score, especially on rewatch. I started to notice like maybe like how underrated like that score actually was, like because Danny Elfman hasn't really done like a superhero movie like up until like Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, right?
He did Batman.
Yeah, he did Batman. Yeah, and I thought he did one other one. Yeah, he only did one of the biggest ones out there, Batman. But yeah, like
a property that is basically all over your channel, Spencer. Yeah, the backbone of most of your content. So my bad. So,
but you know, speaking of soundtrack, I guess I remember because Dunnigan had both the soundtracks of
all three.
Yeah, all three of them and so on like that. Yeah. And there's something special about the original Spider-Man one because they actually kind of go away from it in the next two. But I just love some of the songs that are like, you know, in there beyond just the Danny Elfman soundtrack, which is great throughout the whole thing. But there's just some random songs. Like I just love when Uncle Ben is fucking taking Peter to like, you know, the library and he's just blaring fucking Sum 41 for no reason at all. Like, well, this is Ben's jam mix. You know what I mean? This is his mix 8-track.
Well, it's also one of those songs of like it has nothing like you could stretch the taffy and like, okay, Hero by Chad Kroeger and the dude from Saliva. Okay, you could say, okay, we could flip that around and make it, yeah, it's kind of more 9/11, but we can make it about Spider-Man, sure, whatever. But then you could also like, where do you go with like rock? It's what we're all about. It's what we're into. Come on, shout it out, rock! And they talk about how much they love like 80s rock, and then like. it's Spider-Man, but at the same time, it's a fun song. It's a fun song with Sum 41. But I mean, I wanted like maybe at the end of each movie, we can talk about the soundtrack for a second, because there is an evolution. Because I got the first one because it was at a time before I really knew bands. So you saw a movie, there's a few songs you liked, you got it, And then like the second one, there's like 2 bands on that I liked. And then the third one, I'm like, we already have the first 2. And there's 2 bands on this I like. Okay, cool. So, but yeah, we can maybe circle back to that, because I think it'd be a fun thing just to compare and how they each evolve as time goes on. But
yeah, I just still love picturing like Uncle Ben just fucking driving down through fucking New York in the Evil Dead car, just like cruising, like rock. It's what we're all about. It's what we're in for. Come on, Peter, shout it out.
With the emo haircut, emo haircut and painted nails, and it just.
Yeah. Uncle Ben, can we turn down the music a little bit? It's a little loud in here.
You just like rocking it, just like
it's like Peter
he just pulls up next to Flash. Hey, is this that Flash Thompson kid? Peter, come on, I'll kick his ass. It's what it's all about. Like, no, Uncle Ben, no, fuck.
It's like, Peter, you know what I said? With great power comes great responsibility, and right now you need to roll down your window and rock out. Turn that radio up to 11. With great power comes great responsibility.
I think that like Flash when they picked him up, I want to say that was like, I'm trying to think of other songs are on that soundtrack. I think it was like Alien Ant Farm or some shit like that he was listening to. Yeah, so
it was the early 2000s. So
it was very early 2000s.
Yeah, you had to have the movie tie-in and so on like that, And you know what I was thinking about with Flash Thompson? It's too bad he never came back in 2 and 3 as like the Spider-Man fan, because I just love that part like in the comics where like he's the guy who's like he's the biggest bully to Peter, but he fucking loves Spider-Man.
Yeah, that is a funny dynamic. But in time, Flash Thompson even becomes good. And also in time, he goes to war, he loses his legs, and then he becomes Venom. Like he becomes the future Venom, like Agent Venom, which I don't know how far, we're far off from that, because no Flash Thompson, it can be Agent Venom in the current movies they have. At least the nerdy kid from Dope loses his legs or something like that. But, what was I going to say? But like, he was in Dope, wasn't he? The douchebag.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. But yeah. I think that would have been good. But I also like how like blatantly, apparently, Tobey Maguire was a real prima donna on the script, on the filming to this movie, and that whole scene in the high school, like there's like footage of him like ripping into somebody. I don't know who it is, and then like somebody went to Flash Thompson. He did this in an interview. He said like, yeah, this actually happened. He says like, me and the key grips, like the electrician back there, he's willing to pay you $500 if you knock out Tobey Maguire. And he kind of looks over. There's an electrician plugging like 2 sockets in. He just looks up at him. He just looks back. And he's like, you know what? Like if you don't pull your punch in this fight, you really knock him out. And he says like, it's tempting, but I'm just starting out, and this is like a multi-million-dollar movie, so it's like, I didn't do it, but I had to think about it because he was being a dick that day. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Just the idea of like Flash Thompson's like, hey, Peter, stop bullying everybody,
Yeah, Peter, get a little out of control there, buddy.
That scenario kind of reminds me a little. It's a little bit of a tangent. Hopefully, we don't go on. But that scene from Tropic Thunder, where Tom Cruise's character looks at the key grip and says he wants to punch the director really hard, and the key grip gets. You remember that scene where the key grip walks up to him and says, "Sorry, man," and then just hits him like right in the face.
This is what you face really fucking hard.
Just that scenario you just pictured. You painted there, Ryan. It just made it.
But if that was Avi Arad saying it to him and not a miscellaneous like electrician there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the guy footing the bill and everything like that. You're like, oh, he is. I guess I could punch Toby for that.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I think this movie. I mean, now I think there was this point when I saw Spider-Man 1 for the first time, it was like the greatest thing ever. And there's a point then like you watch it again, and like anything, it kind of like wears off a little bit, and like you still like it, but it kind of wears off. But then you take a long enough break and you come back to it, and I'm like, oh no, this still holds up. This is still a really good movie. And the reason why, I mean, it's not that this movie did anything wrong. It's just that every other movie for like the next every other movie from now until Begins and Iron Man was copying this.
Yeah, and I mean, it still continues to this day and age. I mean, people still, I mean, look at like Blue Beetle and some of those other ones where it's like they're still kind of doing that same old like one character, one villain. We're going to kind of do that. But the weird thing is in Spider-Man, it works so well. Because I thought about it, I'm like, I don't think I've watched these movies since the 2000s. I think that was like the last time I probably like took a watching of that. And I noticed I've been noticing that kind of now is like, there's a lot of movies that like I like a lot, but it's like, oh, it's been over a decade since I've seen them. And then when you kind of watch them again, one, you know what's, the main beats and all that stuff, but you kind of come back to it with like a nice fresh perspective and so on like that. And just watching Spider-Man 1, I mean, I think that first one is about pretty darn close to a pretty solid, perfect superhero movie. Like there's really, never really drops the ball. It's balanced the whole way through. It is the perfect origin story one. Like I think they just kind of hit it all right. There's never a dull moment in the movie, and a lot of the character choices are all solid, it just getting it going and whatnot. And then just to top it off, it's got good action in it. It's just, it captures so much in one. And even as Ryan was saying earlier with like superhero stuff, it's like it's kind of like they finally went full superhero with this one here.
Yeah, and they still showed a lot of appreciation, respect, just because I feel like I'm sure you could find examples. Like I mean, like X-Men was super serious, but there is still some superhero-ness to it, of course. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, I feel like a lot, not every superhero movie, but a lot of superhero movies, like, well, it's a superhero movie. Come on, guys. What do you fucking expect? And then this one was more like, no, it's a superhero movie. But the part where Uncle Ben dies, we're going to make that feel very real. We're going to make that feel really sincere. Or kind of like how there's even the small things where I feel like movies beforehand, a lot of superhero movies or movies like it of its genre beforehand would really hold your hand on it. But like the part when Peter comes home and it's like a distant shot. You don't even see what he sees, what he says to Aunt May. They just start hugging each other and crying right there. Then it's a time jump, like that right there. I'm not saying that that's the only movie to do it, but I haven't seen, I can't think of a lot of movies in this genre or type that would do that up until this point. They kind of treated a lot of things with more maturity while still embracing the camp and other aspects.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the thing that really jumps out to me, like on a rewatch for sure, is especially going off of like all the MCU movies that came out like after this and what Disney's kind of like established for themselves like currently. I appreciated the look of this film like so much. And it really harkens back to like an era where movies were actually shot on film. Because, yeah, like some of the CG effects look kind of cheesy, but I still think a lot of the effects hold up to this day just because it was shot on film. And you can actually feel kind of like this world like come to life, as opposed to something like an MCU movie like Ant-Man Quantumania. I guess that's an extreme example. But mm-hmm. I just think all of the Marvel movies that are coming out now just feel so flat as in comparison to Spider-Man. I know Spider-Man isn't technically MCU, but because it was made by Sony, but I appreciated like how kind of grounded like this film actually was, and allowed me to like kind of like live in this world with Peter Parker.
You go ahead, Spence.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that just has a lot to do because you got a super director. You don't just have any director. You got Sam Raimi. And I think that adds a lot of quality to it. And for the fact that also, too, it always is one of those surprising ones that they even chose him, because it's like, you're going to choose that Evil Dead boy? You know what I mean? Like we want that guy to make this like family-friendly film and so on. But I think it's like that kind of works in its favor because it's like it does add for a lot of cool shots and a lot of different drama and kind of things like that. But I do think it's that thing that there feels like there's a lot more budget put into this than like a modern movie, because this goes with both DC and Marvel movies, is that they start to have that feeling like they're all shot like on a high school like stage with a green screen behind it, and you can see that the entire movie. Like it doesn't feel like you're actually in a real world anymore. You're just like, oh, we're just in a fake place and everybody's wearing fake costumes, and some boys, in post are going to put it all together so that, it's going to look like a movie. But you could sort of see that even if they're standing somewhere, it's just like, the depth isn't there the same way as like a real shot on location film, and then combined with, I think especially with the first Spider-Man, the CG effects, they do the thing like Jurassic Park 1 where like they keep the CG kind of like minor, so it's like use it when you really need to. Where I notice on 2 and 3 they start going kind of ham on those CG effects, and that's why I think 2 and 3 CG doesn't. I'm not gonna say it looks bad or anything like that. It's more obvious that like CG because they're just starting to use it a lot more often than where in this one here it's like they only use it when they really need to use it.
To go off something what you both just said, and Marley, to make a comparison, like Ant-Man Quantumania, that's the thing about this movie, why, because, before you think bigger is better, and Ant-Man Quantumania, by this point, might as well be a Star Wars. And when you hear that, that sounds awesome. But we all saw it, and I didn't hate it. I didn't even dislike it. I was like, oh, that's whatever. But at the same time, like, that movie is so much bigger and so much grander than this movie. But you can kind of feel the care. Like, Ant-Man Quantumania feels like it came off an assembly line, where this feels like Sam Raimi had this in his mind since he read whatever issue of Spider-Man. He knew he wanted to make this the minute he was getting into filming, So the idea of like, I think to both what Spencer, you were saying about filming it on location, and Marley, you saying filming it on film, really kind of makes this movie this many years. Because it's one hero, one villain, standard superhero movie origin setup. But yet it still feels like it's taken itself like we said, there's the camp and there's the cheese, but it's playing a lot of respect to the source material and taking itself very seriously in the very emotional moments too.
Yeah, most definitely. It's that thing that like also it's like, you go back and you read the original like Stan Lee, Steve Ditko like first issue, and it hits so many of the same beats as that, like, which is kind of the cool thing about it. I even just think of like, just some of the cool cameo characters that they also add in, especially this first one. Of course, you get Bruce Campbell in all 3 movies playing a fun role, but he plays the announcer like at the wrestling ring. And then you got the Macho Man, Randy Savage. There, ooh yeah,
Bonesaw McGraw.
Yeah, Bonesaw. Which is just so badass, anyways. That you just go like, oh man, here's that, and Spider-Man's gonna fight Macho Man and everything, and they're really going ham on like Attitude Era wrestling too. But there's just all that stuff. It's like, you read the first issue and it's like boom, 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 boom. That's all right there. Even like in Ultimate Spider-Man, it captures a lot of that too, which was coming out right at the same time as these movies. And then I think even in some of the flashbacks of Spider-Man, the animated series, because the animated series sort of did the thing like, shit, you already know who Spider-Man is. He's already graduated like college or whatever. He's a full-on worker. He's a man now. He ain't no Spider-Boy. He's Spider-Man.
Well, it's also something. I want to mention this because William Dafoe. I don't know, because I feel like they're like, okay, who we really MCU? They're like, all right, we want to bring Green Goblin in, of course, but who's really gonna who can we really get to topple William Dafoe? Because the other dude from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I forgot that actor's name. He's a big deal. I forgot his name though. He's a classic actor. He died. He was on his deathbed. He didn't really get a chance to really William Dafoe or like Green Goblin up. So it's so sad. But fuck it. Let's just bring him back. Yeah, let's just bring him back. Who else are we gonna get? And just when I saw it when I was a kid, I thought that it was a little cheesy, and I thought they could have done it differently. But now I'm like, no. This was the perfect choice because it's so much more unsettling. So when he first has this conversation with himself, like, what did you do? What did you do? What did we do, Norman? What did we do? And in the same shot, it's like him looking into a mirror and then running back up to the mirror and doing like, no, I can't, going back and forth. Like, I was like, as a kid, I was like, this seems a little cheesy. I think he should be looking into a mirror and he sees like the Green Goblin himself, like a scary monster version of the Green Goblin talking back to him. I think he should have done that. But then I'm like, no, it is so much more unsettling. If you walked in on your dad and he was just doing that, going back and forth, leaning into the camera, turning away, like, we did it, like that kind of shit. Like, No. I was fucking wrong. Just leave it. Yeah, anybody else can make that shit. Like, how do you expect me to take this seriously? But William Dafoe, like, yeah, you got this. We'll be back later. Just do you, William. Okay. just
And I feel like Willem Dafoe is really the only actor that could probably give this type of performance as well. And like everything you just said is something that like time will help you kind of like really take grasp, but like what this performance was, what he was doing in this performance. Just because like as a kid, you said, Ryan, it's just like, oh, I need everything to be so literal, like right in front of me, and just be like, and know like everything that's going on. But with time passing for all of us, like we could kind of see and kind of like see how haunting something like that could be in this scene, and I find that just incredible as well. So
yeah.
I also like how the house is so big that James Franco Harry just never sees his dad, like, you know.
He's on the other side of the mansion.
This. Yeah, he's on the other side of the mansion, you know, doing, you know, just hanging out there, you know, playing ping pong against the wall of the butler. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but, you know, it's one of those.
Well, he hates his son.
Yeah, he hates his son, remember? Put him on the other side of the mansion. I don't want to see that fuck. Like, where's the good son? You mean Peter? That's not your kid. Ah, it could be my kid.
I love about this movie. It's just like, it's like Norman, like it feels no shade about like, oh son, you're just an idiot. Oh, hi Peter, how's it going?
He's like, hey Peter,
hi real son, hi real
Project
son.
Award, come on, dude. You know what? Come on, let's go get you some ice cream. You know what? We'll get in the limo and everything like that. Harry, I'll see you when you get home, I guess. Don't make too much noise. Come on, Peter, let's go.
Harry, stop picking your nose again. Stop picking your nose. Jeez. Like
Well, that's the other thing about William Dafoe as Green Goblin. They make it out to be like he was probably not a perfect person, but he was a good enough person. He seemed like a nice guy, nice for being, you know, a multi-billionaire. And then you find out that like, oh no, it's really the serum that made him kind of go even more crazy and more like, what have I done? You know, all this kind of shit, which I think that really makes you feel for him. And I think at this point in time, we weren't used to having the sympathetic villain in very many superhero movies. Now, I think sometimes not everybody needs to be a sympathetic supervillain. Some can just be an asshole, you know? But like, yeah, like another thing about Dafoe, like there's the part like where he's saving like where he's trying to go into like the burning building to save like some screaming old lady. I just like the idea of like, what, like Goblin didn't set the fire up or nothing. Goblin just likes to dress like an old lady, pace back and forth in the middle of a burning building just because it's Tuesday, you know. Like I just like to think that, or like that's not even like a Goblin thing. That's a Dafoe thing, you know. Like, oh, we happen to be here, you know. So, oh, there's fire. William's here. Oh, William. Yeah, here's the helmet. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, he just goes crazy. Yeah, no, there's so much great stuff with just him and his character and everything that, you know, he's kind of got going there. And then it's almost like, you know, he takes this, you know, the gas serum, whatever stuff, makes him a little bit more crazy. And then like the next day, they're like, you know what? I know you started this company. I know you put all this effort and work into here, and it's your fucking name on the side of every building, logo, yada, yada, yada. But the board said, fuck that guy. Let's get him out of here. He literally gets Steve Jobs out of his own company. Where they're just like, you know what, we're voting on. We don't want you around here anymore. You keep fucking yelling at the interns and so on like that, and coming in fucking drinking some new fruit drink every single time. You took the fucking beef jerky out of the vending machine. Get the fuck out of here.
No, I think Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, has more self-control than Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there. I think
a more like apt comparison would be more like Elon Musk to Twitter. How the people who work at Twitter kind of want to like just eject Elon from that's kind of like a Green Goblin situation. So
I mean,
I meant it more like, because here's the guy who started the like company. I mean, with Steve Wozniak, of course, but the fact that then it's just all of a sudden like, you know what? I know that in a sense you made all of us here millionaires, but get the fuck out of here.
And I also think that's also giving Elon Musk too much credit.
Yeah, you know what? I take that back. Actually,
his shit, his like William like Green Goblin's glider works. He doesn't have the fucking pedal coming off and getting jammed underneath the accelerator. So I think that right there. But at the exact same time, Defoe also crushed it. I think he's not so much so we're like, well, what can they do after? Because after Dark Knight, people are like, what are you going to do without Heath Ledger? People had that kind of mindset, and he crushed it, but not so much so that like, oh, I don't want it. Who else? Who can you get next? And of course, I think that's another thing is they get like big, they get like name actors, but they don't get people you initially think, like Alfred Molina. I don't think Molina. Yeah, I don't really think I knew. I was like, oh, he's that guy, but I initially didn't know who he was when I first saw that movie, and he wasn't like a huge name, but he was a respected name,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I think that's sort of the thing is, and the upside too is Spider-Man. That out of all the Marvel series, Spider-Man has the best roster of villains by far. Like it's almost like I always feel Spider-Man's, bad guys are pretty much very close to how good Batman's, villains are. Like there's so many of them. There's so many good ones. I mean, you could literally pick a random name out of the hat and it would be a good choice no matter what. Like that's how great Spider-Man's villains are. So even continuing forward of some of the ones that they kind of go with, it's like it's all a good choice no matter what. And you want to see who Spider-Man kind of fights next and so on. And they'll, stack the roster, as time goes on.
Before we jump into them, you go ahead, Marley.
I would like to just like kind of add on to like what you said about Batman and Spider-Man having kind of like the best villains like in its entire franchise. But the thing that I would kind of counter a little bit is like Spider-Man actually uses at least some of their like villains like pretty well. At least from like the movies I've seen, it seems like Batman always goes back to the classics, like the Joker, the Riddler. We don't really see. You kind of have to dive deeper into like the Batman villains, like play like the video games or like watch some of the animated series. Like at least the Spider-Man movies, like the villains are kind of like for like the mainstream, like to like introduce like people that don't watch Spider-Man or haven't heard of Spider-Man into like these villains that are interesting. So
they do have a tendency to pick more than the same like 5 villains for Spider-Man. That's true. I mean, they did do Green Goblin twice, technically 3 times if you count the third movie. They did do, and then No Way Home was kind of like a best of to a certain extent. But at the exact same time, I think they do a good job of very much, because even like this is an animated movie, but even like whatchamacallit, Into the Spider-Verse, that had like such a weird oddball mix of villains, and Green Goblin was the beginning. It was a different version. It was Ultimate Green Goblin, and he dies. And then everybody else, it's like, okay, Kingpin, we haven't seen live action Kingpin other than Daredevil. Then you had Tombstone, you had Scorpion, you had a lady version of Dr. Octopus, which is a twist at the moment. So, there is a lot going on with like, they're always good about grabbing different Spider-Man villains. Now, do all those villains need a movie? No. But that's a different topic for a different thing. I don't, so who knows? Maybe Kraven will be good. Who knows? I doubt it, though. At the same time, though,
I doubt it, too.
Before we jump on to Spider-Man 2, do you guys want to talk about the Spider-Man 1 soundtrack for a second? Because I remember I had this.
Yeah, we can go deeper into the Spider-Man 1 soundtrack, because you also get that sweet Aerosmith cover of the Spider-Man theme song.
That's true. I should have probably looked this up on Wikipedia sooner, but because sometimes, they sometimes don't always have all the listings on Spotify to do copyright shit. But yeah, so I remember I had this, and this was a very large, like packed soundtrack. I had 18 songs on it. It had first off the old like theme song to Spider-Man. Then it had Sum 41. They had Learn to Crawl by Black Lab. They had like 3 or 4 big bands, and then a bunch of bands like, who the fuck is that? A band called Black Lab, Blue, Alien Ant Farm, Default, Corey Taylor from Slipknot, Green Wheel, The Strokes, that's big. The Hives, they're big. unfortunate here. Theory of the Dead Man. Pete Yorn, who at the time was pretty big. Macy Gray, she was also pretty big, and her song
She's
was
even in the movie.
She's in the movie, and her like Tom Morello did like a guitar riff for that song. Injected, Jerry Cantwell or Cartel Cantrell.
Yeah, so you got Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains.
Yeah, so and then like Aerosmith doing a theme song for the last track. So it was a pretty stacked soundtrack right there.
Yeah, plus Chatty Kroger.
Yeah, Nickelback.
Chad? Oh yeah, how could I forget? How could I forget?
Yeah,
Chad
come
Kroger.
on, like, because for our generation, if you were at like a high school or elementary school dance, you know that they were going to play some Hero.
And you knew that it was like, everyone please stand for the new national anthem. So
and I know that everyone likes to hate on Nickelback, but like I will agree with you, Spencer. Hero is like that one song that I can tolerate listening to Nickelback. At least like 1/3 of them at that point. I'm not sure if like the whole band participates in that song, but that's a great track.
Well, yeah, it's just Chad, and it's the who the hell's the other band, Saliva or whatever. It's like Chad and Chad leaves his Canadian brothers behind to come to America and do a 9/11 song.
Yeah,
Spider-Man 9/11.
Yeah, so I think that was the thing. Like, we need something to lift our spirits. A, Spider-Man. B, a Canadian. Yeah. But
who's always there for us when things go turmoil and so on like that? The French? No, fuck the French. Yeah. The next best thing, Canada. Yeah, I guess we can call on Canada.
Canada, we could use your support. Don't worry, he's already on the way. Just cut to the Canadian Air Force One landing. Chad Kroger's boots hit the ground with a guitar in hand.
You say like, are you sure you don't want Justin Bieber? No Drake? No, okay.
Justin Bieber would be like fucking like 7 years old at this point.
He'd be a fetus maybe at this point.
Yeah, just like flopping around, fucking like something out of like The Thing.
And Drake is on
Drake was in Degrassi in a wheelchair right now, so that's where Drake was at.
It's the one character before we even just go into Spider-Man 2, but I think it'll be a good Spider-Man transition thing that we didn't even bring up whatsoever. Time about everybody else be like, oh yeah, you know who else is in there that's kind of big is Mary Jane.
Yeah, because Bring It On just happened. So Kirsten Dunst, yeah. Kirsten Dunst, yeah, because she was in Bring It On, so she was also like a big teenage heartthrob at the time, but she was really good in this too, though. I think she probably has like the most to do in Spider-Man 2, but she was still, I could see her throat hurting after every one of these movies because how much like just screaming she's doing the whole time.
Well, let's be honest, she's not the one doing the screaming though. There is definitely a voice actor that does that for her.
True.
Yeah, very, very, very true. Shout outs to those voice actors that have to scream for top talent like Kirsten Dunst.
But the one, you go ahead, Marley. You go first.
Well, one thing I wanted to say before wrapping up Spider-Man 1 is the thing that I noticed, especially on this rewatch, is like the representation, in this film as well. Like Octavia Spencer, just doing a side character, kind of like a performance.
Yeah.
But it was so nice to see her this really great actress in this movie, and seeing back in the early 2000s you don't really see that type of representation, and where we are now with Spider-Verse, where a main black teenager is starring in Spencer. We were talking before recording. It could possibly beat this original trilogy for Spider-Man. The Spider-Verse trilogy. But I don't know. It's just something I wanted to mention. Just I thought that it's kind of it's great to see how far we've come at that point.
Well, something that actually links into Spider-Man 2 is there's a lot of bystanders and random people that are in Spider-Man 1, which I didn't notice the first time watching it, but then realizing, those are some of those same random bystanders and people from Spider-Man 1 in Spider-Man 2. Like the part when Green Goblin there's people throwing shit at him from the Brooklyn Bridge. The black dude with the dreadlocks who says like, I got something for you, goblin ass, whatever, when he says that's the same dude that's over at the fire that Spider-Man goes in and saves that little Asian kid. And then the firefighters that happen to be there, those are the same firefighters that are in Spider-Man 1. So it does do this thing of just trying to build a community around. I know New York's a big fucking place, but it does this thing about making it feel more lived in, more like, more of a community in that aspect, and kind of like how he brings people together. And even like Octavia, that was Octavia Spencer?
Yeah, because I noticed that too. It's like, oh shit, like that's what was. Well, back in the day, you would never have noticed that because she wasn't a big actress yet. So it's just she has a bit role. She's like handing out the tickets at the wrestling ring.
Yeah, so she was. I didn't know that was Octavia Spencer. Yeah, but no, she was really good, and she when she was in that scene, that was also just like a real throwaway moment, but it was also so natural because if you would see this dorky little guy in like this red and blue suit coming up to go up against like fucking Macho Man Randy Savage, you'd be like, what are you doing? And she was like very like, come on, dude. What come on. Really? What are you thinking? All right, sure, go ahead. Like her response was so like realistic in that sense, right?
Here's
there.
this
Actually even
sorry.
No, you go
here's
ahead,
this here's this nerdy teenager just like in his Spider-Man, well, it's not even Spider-Man pajamas, just red and blue pajamas, just showing up. Hey, I'd like to participate. And she's just like, okay, sure. Just like whatever.
Well, even I know we keep on saying on to the next movie, but before we go on to the next movie, I do just one more thing. Even that idea, because right there we haven't seen the costume yet, so we assume that it's going to be the Spider-Man costume, and then we see, oh, it's this mock-up bullshit version,
Yeah, just working its way up and so on, but like in a fun, natural way, how he builds towards it and everything there. And then I guess there's also one other thing. The interesting one too about this Spider-Man compared to original Spider-Man, whether that be comic book and or animated series and so on, is that the one major difference that you have is the fact that Spider-Man's webs are not from cartridges in these movies.
Yeah.
Is that he produces himself from his wrist, which means I guess he has a limited supply because of this. Because that's the one thing I remember. Like I used to have mixed feelings about that because at first I was like, oh, that seems more natural and stuff that he'd have it there before. But then I also think the cartridges have something kind of cool because it does give him sort of he can't just have unlimited webs. It gives him a little bit of a limiting factor. So I've kind of come back around to going like, you know what? I think I kind of like the web cartridges more. Not saying that both versions totally work, but it is an interesting call, but it does work in this one. But I think it's also too, it's just like, what, you think some teenager's just gonna be able to invent some cartridge thing? Who the fuck do you think he is, Reed Richards?
Well, in this he's not portrayed to be like a genius. Well, I mean, maybe as it goes on to an extent, he's portrayed to be smart, not smart, but not kind of like smart, not like a Tony Stark level genius. And I think some of a bunch of other movies with a big over what's the word I'm looking for? A big overly elaborate world made to be. Sure, of course, a teenager is smart enough to make web shooters. This guy can make a suit out of like scrap in a cave. This kid could probably pull off some web slingers. Sure.
Spider-Man may have unlimited supply of webs, but in Spider-Man 2 he loses that because he gets depressed. So
this also goes. This also goes back to sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. This also goes back to Christopher Reeve's Superman 2, the thing where the hero has to make a sacrifice for like the life he wants to live or the life that he should live,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it definitely has that going into Spider-Man 2. And of course, I want to mention this about Mary Jane, and this goes in from Spider-Man 1 to 2. Is one, I like her hair better in the first one. She has the pure red hair. It's for some reason she goes to like orange hair in the next two. I don't know why. they felt like they wanted to like make her seem more like, I don't know, toned down maybe. But I love how Mary Jane, I thought about this the whole time. I'm like, she is 100% like Jenny from Forrest Gump, where she's got Spider-Man fucking friend zone just like Forrest Gump, and she's banging every douchebag known to mankind. It starts with Flash. You got football player, you know, bully douche. Then she goes on to Harry, who is just rich boy, you know, douche, and then she goes to fucking space douche with fucking J. Jonah Jameson's son. Like, it's just like, dude, it's like one of those ones, like, she doesn't even choose like normal guys. She's like, no, I need the douchiest guys I can find.
Well, even that dude, like the only thing douchey about him is you assume he's probably a douche because his dad's J. Jonah Jameson, but at the same time, which we have 2 more movies about J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah,
because he's probably the best part. Realistically, at the end of the day, J. Jonah Jameson is like straight out of the comic and the best. You couldn't have a better choice. So much so that they're like, if we make different Spider-Man universes, we're still keeping him.
He's the one consistent.
It's hilarious, like how much of that is actually true. Where everyone else is changed, and like if they ever like when they remake these movies, but James Jonah Jameson is like he's like the one constant. Like they really like even in the Spider-Verse movies, like they literally just copy and paste like that character like in there. But I don't know. It's J.K. Simmons, a class act.
So good.
Completely class act. So.
Well, even the small things with him, to go back to one for a second, like he's a douchebag. There's no way around it. But then, like, you expect when Goblin comes in and like attacks him, you expect him to give Peter up. But he has some moral standings and some grounds because he doesn't sell Peter out. So there's like small little things like that stack up. And also one of those things that makes you a little bit more endearing to him, aside from being one of the funniest characters on the room, like Christmas beef. I'll give you a nice good Christmas beef. Now get the hell out of here, you know. So like, but then like even into this, like number 2, like. I kind of like how I think this is kind of Spider-Man unfiltered to a certain extent, number 2, because I think, you know, we always know Peter Parker has trouble balancing his life with Spider-Man and Peter Parker shit. And I think number 2 does a very good job about making that more the bigger issue than Doc Ock. Like Doc Ock is almost something going on in the background that he's like, yeah, I guess I might bump into him later. And then like, oh, he's been building a death device this whole time. I didn't know about that. And then it's more of like him working through his shit than having come back to Doc Ock.
Yeah, it's just the fact that Peter is now at this point, because this goes to show why he's not like the comic book one. He's like, Peter's too fucking, you know, he's smart, but he ain't smart enough to get a good fucking job. He can't even keep that pizza delivery job. Shit.
Well, that's very comic booky though. He go through that kind of shit all the time in the comics. But in that context, there's like, dude, just get off the fucking bike, you know?
Yeah, it's just like, dude, why do you even have this bike? Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, you're paying fucking registration on this thing that you don't even need to, you know? And then there's always that thing, too, where Peter, like, he always has the hardest time telling anybody he likes and loves, like, that, hey, I'm Spider-Man. But every fucking villain's gonna figure it out in 2 seconds. Like, you might as well, like, fucking tell Aunt May that you're Spider-Man. You're gonna give her a fucking heart attack the day she actually figures it out.
Well, I also do appreciate that this one, like, he manages to keep his identity ahead of the villain. You know, usually the villains figure it out, but this one, it's like the villain only finds out because he takes off his mask, you know? And I think if you look at this movie, there is a couple of logic gaps here and there, but it's like also things I'm just willing to put aside because the movie itself is so enjoyable. Like, why Dr. Octavius, like, we need Parker. Like, all right, I'm going to throw a fucking car at him, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, there's some logic gaps here and there like that. But at the same time, I think this is my favorite of the trilogy, like a lot of other people. Like, I know, Spencer, I don't know where you stand. I know, Marley, I think number 2 is your favorite,
I'm a number
right?
1. I've come to the conclusion that 1 is definitely my favorite one.
I think it's a toss-up for me. It's between 2 and 1. I think they're both like, I think 2 kind of falls within the camp of like really great sequels to an already like really good film, kind of like this, like Shrek 1 to Shrek 2. like there's not very many movies. There's not very many movies that kind of
Spencer wasn't imagining that. Wasn't guessing
that was not the movie I was thinking you'd go with. You know, it falls into like the great historical sequels. You know, Godfather Part 2. You know, Empire Strikes Back. Shrek 2.
See, but no, people online love their Shrek.
Grumpier old men.
Like, but I don't know. I think that what I like most about Spider-Man 2 is that it shows kind of like that transition from high school to like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, here's like Peter Parker. Like, yeah, he is Spider-Man, but he also like, he wants to be a photographer, but he's also living in New York where it's like crazy expensive, like even back then. And just like him kind of like struggling with like everyday life. And it's kind of nice seeing like, I think this is why Spider-Man is so relatable too, is because like Batman like is cool, but he's a billionaire and no one can really relate to that. Spider-Man is like dealing with like everyday problems. And I feel like Spider-Man 2 kind of like deals probably with that like the best, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, I mean, that's Spider-Man's like MO is that he is the everyman character that just happens to get superpowers. It's it's the reader. So he's the one that works when that like you can have him doing just regular shit and being like, oh, yeah, that's part of Spider-Man's kind of thing. Sometimes I kind of hate when other characters try to put that into there, and it's just like, no, I don't believe some of these other characters are gonna stop and try. No. Like some characters are just superhero at heart. It's like Batman. Like Batman is like no. He's superhero. He bought himself into this whole world. He's trained his way up and so on like that. But Spider-Man's the one that can work where you can believe it's like, oh yeah, he would do some goofy shit like this. He would like go out of his way to just work an honest job instead of just, using his powers maybe to make some more shit. He'd just be going back to these fucking wrestling rings and just like scoring money each time there. That's how he could fucking, keep Aunt May's house around. But instead it's like, no, she's fucking, hiring the neighbor boy for $5. She's like, I'm paying him Chinese labor wages here.
But is he technically winning money from like those wrestling? Like he's obviously getting scammed because like in the first one, like he got scammed.
So saying he was just saying that's how I guess by that point, like, hey, remember me? This time you probably pay me, right? Because I'll actually stop the guy this time.
Right.
Maybe you can go in like that.
Well, no, I don't know. Spider-Man could literally, if really, it's kind of like, it is sort of a logic. I get why they're doing it for the storytelling and supposed to make it more relatable. But let's be honest, Peter Parker could just be like, oh, you know what I can do? I can hold my powers back and I'll just go into something like the UFC and fucking dominate and collect my money. And, as long as I don't make it myself seem too powerful, no one's gonna put two and two together. Be like, oh, Peter was in that. Well, we never saw what he really did. Remember that time that he fucking beat the shit out of Flash? Yeah, I guess it does make kind of sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe it's just like if I was Peter and if I got scammed out of like $3K, which is what Peter did in the first movie. I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. Like this is ridiculous.
There's more than one wrestling.
That's like see that's Wile E. Coyote logic though. Is if it didn't work once, never do it again. You know what I mean? Like Peter could go he could literally go lucha libre down to Mexico and just do some wrestling down there for a while, make all the money that's he's gonna need to get Aunt May's house back. But like, it's the weird. He's like, no, instead I'm gonna take a minimum wage job selling pizzas and so on like that. And I feel like Stan Lee's like, you know what? We need to relate to them. See, that's you fucking selling minimum wage pizzas. Why? Because you need to buy the next Marvel comic. Excelsior!
Capitalism.
He's right. And they're raising it up by 25 cents. Fuck, gotta make that raise. Gotta sell more pizzas now. Oh shit, he is me. No, I think that also the thing about this one is going off of Doc Ock for a second. They really do, because I was like, how are they going to make Doc Ock likable? Because everything about Doc Ock is just like, you simpletons, you are simply just not he's always just such a condescending, like, know-it-all dick, which is his thing, which is what I expect. But then, like, you guys are making him nice? I'm like, oh, okay, you did the thing where it's science gone wrong. It's a little thing in the back of his head that makes him lose control. But I just thought that they did a pretty good job of that. I did think it was a little weird, the idea of like, well, clearly this AI that controls the robots or like have some sub coding. It's just like, it all costs, but at the exact same time, like it works still,
I think it works too, just because like it shows the Octavius like in this film, like he's obviously I wouldn't call him like poor like in this movie, but he definitely like partners up with like with Osborn just because like he's funding like his research, his project. And I feel like that kind of like humanizes like that character a little bit just because it like this is something that he's like really passionate about, and it really is. It's kind of like a interesting theme of like your passion projects need to be funded by kind of like it just like you can't fund them on your own. It's like you got to like even if you aren't really a fan of like a company, you got to like get some sort of funding from somewhere. So I kind of like that aspect where it's like Doc Ock is kind of like this like kind of like struggling like scientist like that's just trying to like get like his vision like seen. But I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting. So
yeah, and then you know Harry thinks he's got the best investment ever. He's like, oh man, this is like the Enron, and before it crashes and everything like that, you know. And then of course Doc Ock is like, oh, that just opened up fucking like you know like a ginormous like solar flare of death coming at us, and oh my god, like we'll shut this fucking thing down. Good thing Spider-Man showed up. Like how the hell is he here already? Oh whatever, let's not question that part, you know.
I understand they need a little bit of drama, but I honestly think there's like multiple ways they could have easily dispelled kind of like some of the drama between Harry and like Peter. It's just like, if you knew who he was, would you tell me? Like, yes, that's where you just blatantly lie and say, of course. You know,
yeah.
Like I never get that.
I killed your dad. I killed your dad. It's cool.
What about it? Your dad was a dick.
Yeah.
You don't believe the shit he was talking about you beforehand.
Technically, he didn't kill his dad. His dad was trying to kill Peter.
Yeah.
Well, but it wasn't actually his dad. It was actually Green Goblin. It's very complicated, Harry. I'm sorry. So
it's that classic thing that happens. It happens in a lot of movies, but it's just that thing. If all you did was just sit down and have a nice conversation, all these things would be worked out. But instead, nobody says fucking anything, and it just makes it escalate.
And it's kind of like it's more of like I think there's just ways around it. You could still have the drama, but just the idea of like the way Peter goes about it. Just the idea of like, you know, like Spencer. If one of our dads was murdered and one of us somehow knew, like, dude, do you know who murdered my dad? And one of us is like.
Well,
there would be
obviously
some tension. That's a long time to say no, you know? So there would be some fucking tension. So it was so like I think that's where you just regardless, even though you're a superhero, you don't like to lie. Just say, of course, yeah. If I knew who Spider-Man was, like you know, I just don't believe Spider-Man would do that. Well, I fucking saw him. Your dad was rich. He was probably into some weird shit. What? It's my birthday. You can't be mad at me.
Yeah, there's that kind of stuff. Well, that goes the same way with Mary Jane too, because she has that same like bitchy attitude, like going with it too, where she's like, "You can't show up to my fucking play. Everybody else on the face of the planet did. Aunt May showed up. Harry showed up. That black guy with the dreadlocks that Ryan keeps bringing up showed up. You know what I mean? Like, where were you?
One time, like he's my favorite character. You know, yeah, an action figure to him. Yeah,
Flash Thompson literally got, you know, he got out of the army for leave for a week. He showed up. You know what I mean? Like, where the fuck are you? It's just, this is one of those ones where it's like, Spider-Man, all you gotta do is say it once. Say it once. Be like, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm fucking Spider-Man. This is why I can't show up. You know, problems are all fucking solved there. You know what I mean? But instead he goes, I just, you know, Bruce Campbell turned me away. Yo, oh, you're blaming it on fucking Bruce Campbell again. How many times are you going to blame it on fucking Bruce Campbell? And he just seems to be, what, everywhere? You know? It's just always is a Bruce Campbell issue? Like, why don't you take fucking responsibility, Peter, and show up to my fucking play that means more to me than you fucking do?
Not to get sorry, Ryan, but I have to mention this thing about Bruce Campbell. But it's something that I noticed throughout all three of these movies. Why does Bruce Campbell like every single race in these movies? Like I think in the third one he's like he's like French somehow. Like he's French, and then the second one he's kind of like the upper class like Italian, and just I don't know. It's just like
he's character acting.
I understand he's character acting, but it's just like it I don't know. I just think it's super funny that like
No,
this,
I have an actual answer to this. An actual answer.
Mhm.
The fourth movie, he was going to be Mysterio.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Here's another Mysterio. Mysterio.
No, I'm not lying. That's he was going to be. There's concept art. He was going to be Mysterio in the fourth movie. He wasn't going to be a big part. It was going to be a quick bit. It was going to be a montage of Spider-Man knocking out a bunch of other small like C and D level villains before going on to the big stuff, and he was somewhere in there.
I like that.
I
like
almost
that a
just
lot,
wish
actually.
that they would have doubled down and made him like a full character, because one, I like Mysterio a lot, and then two, the fact that it's Bruce Campbell playing it. And then I feel the other one too, when you speak of that kind of stuff, is Dr. Connors.
Or Chameleon. He could have been Chameleon even.
Yeah, he could have been that too. But they show Dr. Connors starting in 2, and he's also in 3, which makes you feel like it's leading up to like, oh, at some point he's gonna become the Lizard. I mean, of course he does an Amazing Spider-Man, but that's a alternative reality variation. But that's the kind of the neat thing in these movies too, is these movies also had that thing where like X-Men did the same thing too, but like that there was like this build up to like, if this kind of kept going on, like say there was a 4th and a 5th one and stuff like that, you have these characters that you already have kind of built up. You're like, oh shit, that guy who's like, Peter's college teacher, for the average Joe that didn't know that, like, they first go, what fuck teacher just has like a missing arm like that? Well, nobody says anything about that. Oh yeah, well, you'll see why. He's going to try to get that arm back, and it ain't going to work out right.
Yeah. No, he wasn't even going to be the main villain in the fourth one. The fourth one was going to be John Malkovich as the Vulture.
Oh, that'd be badass. God,
that would be really cool, actually.
It always bums me out when you hear about like, okay, here's what this was, and you're like, oh man, that would have been such the way to go. That sounds, sweet. You know what I mean?
Well, hasn't Sam Raimi actually come out and said that he's definitely interested in returning to this set of films?
He's probably not going to make that movie if he did. I think there's been always like a little tease of that, but who knows, maybe. But I think right now, because they re-released these movies in the States to theaters, and I think they're doing good. So, and I think it's also because there's that period, like a lot of things, where things come out, they're popular, people love them, give it a few years, give it 1 or 2 iterations later, people are like, yeah, they're all right, they're cool for the time, but they're a little cheesy now. And then give it more time, people are like, actually, no, this is pretty fucking cool. And I think, too, also, where they all have it, I think 2 does the best job of like focusing in on the more drama aspect of it. Because even going to the scene where like Aunt May's having trouble paying for the house, like she has that moment with Peter where he's like, here, take this money, happy birthday, kid. And he's like, I can't take it. And she like, what should have just been a very small, like, yeah, you can take the money. She just like snaps, she like breaks. She's always so happy and cheerful, and she's like, yes, you can. She's like on the verge of tears, like, it's not much, I can still take care of myself. Like, oh fuck, this got real,
Poor Aunt May in that scene, like she literally throws like a party for Peter, and Mary Jane is there, Harry is there, and Peter's just like not like happy about it at all. She's literally passed out on the kitchen table, and Peter's just like, Aunt May, are you okay?
Aunt May went to town on that wine box.
Yeah.
like she's grabbed the box, went over to eat Uncle Ben's easy chair. You kids want to have your party. Aunt May's having a little party over here. Just like,
I want to see a
Capri Suns it with a straw.
I want to see a deleted scene where Aunt May is just like, it's like a full-on rager at that party, and Aunt May is just like on kitchen tables, just like, let's go, happy birthday, Peter.
That little 9-year-old kid's just like partying. He's like drinking his first beer.
Chumbawamba's is playing in the background. Yeah. No, like, do we want that, or do you just want the real like depressing art house thing where just like a 5-minute one take shot, just Aunt May just like takes a straw, like upside down Capri Sun style, just jams it into the wine cooler, and just like starts chugging it herself, like spills on herself, doesn't care, just keeps going. She's thinking, Oscar, here I come. But it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, we had to cut that.
Sorry, we got to fit this Chumbawamba song in here somehow.
Oh, I love that.
Peter comes and, well, it's once again, it's like, 'cause Peter just not tell, he's like, that birthday party is like, here's everybody that Peter just will not, tell the truth to. You know what I mean? Just like, you're going to solve a lot of problems here. If Peter, you just have your coming out party right now, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, out of the Spider-Man closet store. Yeah, if he did something like that, but at the same time, we need a movie to happen. So
yeah. He needs to have these problems that he's going to work through, and he's going to watch Mary Jane bang everybody else while he's just still waiting for it. Like, and then next thing you know, by Spider-Man 5, she'll be like, Peter, I have AIDS. I need you to, take care of our child. He's like, well, do I got AIDS? No, you're Spider-Man. You don't get AIDS. I do. Because
Spiders don't get AIDS. Spiders don't get AIDS.
Yeah. But you could be Spider-Woman. It's like, I can't be, Peter. I'm dying here, and you have to take care of the kid. Or it'd be like
instead of like a feather in the wind, it's just like a cobweb drifting around in the wind for the final shot.
Yeah, be like one of those ones, It's like, well, does our kid have AIDS? No, he's got spider, genes. He'll be fine. How long have you had AIDS for? Oh, I've had it since fucking Spider-Man 2. I got those space AIDS, you know what I mean? Like when a boy gets back from being on a NASA trip, he fucks everything in sight. He also does it before he goes up there too, because he's assuming that he's never. It might be one of those shuttle ones where it blows up in midair.
I love Spencer. I love the Forrest Gump comparisons, but like on rewatch, like I started noticing, especially after seeing Challengers. Look at Guadagnino's.
Yeah, the Challenger. There we go.
I seen more similarities to Challengers in Spider-Man 2 and 3, more on this rewatch, just because, like, think about it, like. Harry and Peter, like, they're best friends, and they both fall in love with like the same girl, and it's about them kind of like competing, especially in 3, about them kind of like competing for the love of Mary Jane, and I don't know, very interesting.
It could be like that weird Oliver Stone movie that like is like the only like not really that great Oliver Stone movie where they're like Peter and Harry are like, well, we both love the same girl, she loves us, fuck it, 3-way. It's the only way we're gonna make this right. Come on, guys.
The plot of Challengers. Literally the plot of Challengers. Let's sell weed while we're at it. Yeah. That's basically. No, I kind of took it as it's a movie kind of about, as we haven't really talked about Harry Osborn that much, but it is kind of a movie sort of about like there is a little bit of a love triangle. But more of like, I honestly feel like to some extent Harry's a little over Mary Jane by the third movie. We'll get to that. I felt like it was more of like he has slight feelings, but kind of gave into him, and it's more about getting even with Peter. And I think it's more of like almost to a certain extent by the third one more solidifies this kind of a friendship more a movie about a group of 3 friends, kind of to a certain extent. Because
anime trio.
Yeah, kind of to a certain extent. And like even like this mood, like the second one, like the whole thing of Harry Osborn is kind of like sort of a secret villain, and like because the trailer made it out to be like he hires him to kill Spider-Man, but that doesn't happen until like the end, Mm-hmm. And he says, I need more of the ununtainium or whatever, and then that's where he comes in and says, like, you'll get him through Peter, but don't hurt him. So there's still a little bit of that sense of like he cares for his friend, even though he's pissed off at him,
Yeah, no, there still is a friendship there, even though he's like, I know that lying son of a bitch. He just stares at me when I ask about my dad.
There was a disturbance.
I don't know, Your dad loved you. Your dad always loved you. Stop saying my dad loved me. That's the only answer you got whenever I ask you who fucking Spider-Man is.
But then I don't know, ask your butler. He seems to have like which I think, well, before we lead into the third one, let's talk about the soundtrack for the second one. Want to do that for a second?
Yeah, we'll soundtrack it up because wasn't this the double disc one too, if I remember correctly?
No, this was not double disc. None of them were actually double disc.
Shit up then.
So this one had the big
none of them double D'd it up.
I mean, no double D. So there's definitely a couple of there's a couple of bands on here that like that's something of the time, and there's a couple of like, oh, those guys, and then there's a lot of never heard of this before. Dashboard Confessional, so definitely a moment of the time.
Yeah,
Train. Definitely. Train was kind of big through '90s, through part of 2000s. Here you go.
They've held on. Yeah.
Here's one. Here's a definite one of the time. Hoobastank.
That's 100%. You know,
See, I'm looking at Taking Back Sunday for one of their songs, like on the soundtrack. That's definitely a moment of the time as well.
yeah.
They got Taking Back Fun. They got one of my most hated bands, Maroon 5. I fucking hate Maroon 5.
Oh god, terrible band.
They got Jet, which is a band I like.
Oh, that's cool.
They got Yellow Card. They got bands I don't really. I know the name Smile, Empty Soul, but I don't really know any of their songs off the top of my head. Lost Prophets. I know of Lost Prophets. Midtown, the Ataris, Anna, and then Jimmy Janico. I don't know who that is, and Brian May. Here's where I find out. Oh, those are like actually huge musicians.
Is that Brian May of Queen? I think it is.
Oh, I'm gonna feel stupid if it is. Yeah, Brian May of Queen. So now I'm gonna have to actually look that up. Yeah.
So that was got an interesting soundtrack. I don't think it's nearly up. It's definitely not like the first one. The first one has the solid, like, it's got some bangers in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. This is one of those albums that when I got it, I mainly got it because, like, at the time I really liked Hoobastank, and I don't even dislike them, but at the time I liked them. And then I liked Jet, and they're like, there's enough other. I've heard of Yellow Card, and I don't like Maroon 5, but there's whatever. It's Spider-Man, so yeah. And then that brings us to the third movie, which, Marley, I texted you once I was done watching Spider-Man 3, which the thing is, I still like this movie, but there is some real weird, like, decisions in this movie. And part of me feels like this is some of, like, Sam Raimi's most strongest character work. And another part of me feels like he is daring someone to fire him.
Yeah. Okay. I hated this movie when I saw it in theaters originally, and then on rewatch, I've seen this film twice since I saw it in theaters, and on the most recent rewatch, I love this movie a lot. Like, I think this is probably the better. I think this is the better of the trilogies because I love the theme of what Sam Raimi is trying to say here is that you don't need full on anger and revenge to solve any of your problems, and how that can kind of like backfire right in your face. You need love and friendship, and I hate to say this on your podcast, and family to help you prevail. So
you make us sound like we're like the most like hateful family. Like
no. It's just
he's making a Fast and Furious reference.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I love Fast and Furious. I don't know what you're talking about, Marley.
Well, I always bring it up, so it's always like this like sore in everyone's side, but I just love like that theme of like Peter just needing to get revenge on like his uncle's killer, and thinking that will be like the end all be all, where it's like I will finally find avenge for Uncle Ben, and when that scene actually happens, Peter doesn't feel anything at that point, and it happens at the halfway point too. Yeah, I just love that it's like Sam Raimi is just saying you have to have love and respect on your side, and like seeing like a dark side of like Spider-Man 2, where of just because Spider-Man doesn't kill people, and seeing him like be ruthless like in this film is like a nice change of pace. But I also like seeing like how you can like the repercussions of that as well.
Well, yeah, kind of going with that and so on. Well, one, Peter just needs to hang out with some Frank Castle for a bit, and then he'll get over that killing part, and he'll learn to love it. But but beyond that, like I just watched this movie literally this morning, and then kind of watching it again. And it's probably maybe the fourth or fifth time I've maybe seen it in total, but once again, haven't seen it since probably the 2000s, like the late 2000s was probably the last time I watched it. And I'm almost going to say this. I think I like Spider-Man 3 more than Spider-Man 2. I think if I went in order, I'd go 1, 3, 2. And I'm not saying it's by like a humongous margin, but I really do think that for the most part, other than a couple goofiness things, and they mostly happen way towards the end, like literally about the first like hour and 40 minutes of this movie, it's really solid. I think just like the whole way through, it's got multiple villains in it. I love Sandman. Sandman is so good, but then you also got Harry doing Hobgoblin and all kinds of stuff in there. And there's just a lot of good stuff. And I think also, too, they toned back some of the comedy. Because I will say in 2, we never mentioned this, 2 has some kind of wacky comedy that I kind of forgot about. That, like, they almost did that thing. Yeah, they got some moments that, like, it reminds me of, like, one doesn't really have a whole lot, but it just maybe there's a couple jokes here and there. And someone's like, hey, people kind of like that comedy. And then so they double down on it in the sequel, like classic sequelitis mistake. And so 2 had some stuff in there that nothing god awful. It's definitely not Disney bad, but just enough that it's noticeable. And I noticed that 3 kind of pulls back a little bit on. Not saying they don't have some stuff. They do throw in, of course, the goofy dance scene, which is not god awful. But the one main thing I also think too is that I've just accepted this by now is that Eric Foreman is fucking Venom, which is that's like the part when you first see the movie for the first time. You just, how do you take Eric Foreman as Venom? But when you just kind of accept it, like, hey, he's Venom. Whatever, that's what this movie is, and I just take it for that's the bottom line. I enjoy that much more. Like once I go into it like that, like yeah, Venom's it's a little weak once it gets towards the end. I feel like almost in like 5 more minutes, maybe 10 more minutes, you could add just one more extra depth of Venom in there. Like just he gets the suit. Maybe he goes out on a spree where he starts absorbing people or something like that. Just doing some Venom shit. Terrorizing the town, learning his powers, but also like taking on like this, oh my God, like I'm a fucking badass, and then go into the end, But beyond that, though, I fucking love Spider-Man 3. I'm going to say this. I was pretty darn impressed in this last watch.
So now, when I first saw this movie, it was my favorite of the trilogy. And I was like the only one, and everyone around me was like, "This movie sucks. This movie's shitty. This da-da-da." And I was like, "Fuck you! You guys don't get it. It's a really good fucking movie. You guys are fucking assholes." And then as time went on, I was like, "Yeah, I like it, but it's definitely flawed." And then this is probably the first time I've watched this movie in 10 years, and yeah, I think the flaws about it bother me more than they bother you, Spence, but at the same time, I still really enjoy it. And I think that as a whole, it kind of more comes together. And I think the only thing is it's just really like, because I honestly think this movie would be better without Venom. And it makes sense if you want to explore Spider-Man's dark side, you bring Venom into it. But at the same time, Venom was literally, I want to say he was penciled in like when they already started shooting. They crowbarred him in there, which explains like, oh, a falling star lands in Central Park and just hitches a ride and just hangs out in like just hangs out in a corner of his room until one night he falls asleep, and then how, like you said, Spencer, he just kind of like Venom proper doesn't come in until the end. And even then, it's still the kind of Eric Foreman-ness. Now, I will say, even when I saw this movie, I didn't think that he was the right choice. And I still don't think he is the right choice. But it's interesting because it's only for a second. This is some of that small stuff I was talking about with like with Sam Raimi. But like underneath Eddie Brock, that like, because when you Eddie Brock in the comics, he's like jacked bodybuilder, all this shit. You don't want to fuck with him.
Cameras.
Yeah. He's like, when he's like, after he's done like being in the dark room, doing a bunch of like photography, he's then going like bench pressing with all like the lights off, listening to like Henry Rollins or some shit.
He puts the bench press in the dark room so he can work out with the red light and get even angrier.
That's true. That's true. That's better. Yeah. I like that, and then like, so that's kind of what was in my head. And I still kind of prefer that for Venom. But at the exact same time, it was an interesting choice because it's a small thing. It's a very quick thing, but it says so much more than anything else he says. There's that line when he bumps into Gwen Stacy. I think it was Spider-Man Day at some point when he bumps into Gwen Stacy. We already kind of know he's an asshole because he was taking pictures like, "I'm so happy you're okay, baby. By the way, pictures came out great, whatever, And then she says like, "So about us, like I can't tonight. What about tomorrow?" Like, "Eddie, it was coffee. It was one date." And it just shows him looking at her and he has like this like Manchurian Candidate stare, just looking. It's only for a second. It's only for a second. When you see that, like, this dude has fucking serial killer in him. He fucking, just that look, just that. Like, it wasn't like, "Oh, come on." It was like I'm going to kill everybody. He just had this whole, like, I'm like, that's what happened if this guy got the symbiote. That's totally what would happen. It's kind of like, it's more than Venom. It's more of Tetsuo from Akira is more of what it is.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to say it. And I will say Eric Foreman, does, act his way out in this. You know what I mean? Like, he really does put in 100% effort, for sure. And then even speaking of serial killer, I mean, in Predator 3,
Yeah,
that's what he plays in it. He's the serial killer, because the whole time you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Who brought fucking Eric Foreman up here and everything like that? You're like, oh shit, he's actually killed more people than all these other people. It's just he's been keeping it on the down low, which I always thought was a kind of cool twist. And that's the thing, is he does still do a good job. It's one of those ones, like, if you just take it for what it is, yeah, it's not. It's like the one thing where they kind of like, where everything else generally in these movies is pretty comic book / cartoon accurate. That's like the one where they sort of take liberties with, and I don't know really why. It's like, it's such a weird one. It's like, that '70s show is popular, so you're getting Ashton Kutcher? No. So you're getting Red Foreman then? Yeah, no, we're getting Topher Grace. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, sure. That was probably the last person on my list. I would have chose Bob the neighbor before I chose him, but sure.
Well, it kind of goes along with the. It goes along with the whole
Donna would have probably been a better like Venom.
It kind of goes along with the whole casting of like this entire trilogy. Like, Ryan, you said like you didn't know who Alfred Molina was, like when like he was announced as Doc Ock in first Spider-Man 2, and I don't think not saying that Topher Grace, the announcement of like him playing like Eddie Brock was like kind of like anyone got excited over that, but I kind of like that Sam Raimi and like the casting department went with like these relatively like unknown like castings, like even someone like Bryce Dallas Howard too playing Gwen Stacy.
Yeah,
like
I forgot she was in there. Yeah, it was like I knew Gwen Stacy was. I was like, oh shit, that's who that was. Oh geez.
Yeah, like I did people know her like a lot like in the early 2000s?
She was in stuff. I mean, her dad's Ron Howard, but at the same time, like, I think she was in stuff. But this was like, I think was she in The Village by this point?
Is that so. the
M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
But that's the thing about the first 3 Spider-Man movies, is it doesn't feel like they're going like biggest actors we can find. It feels like, I mean, there's some creative choices like Topher Grace, but then beyond that, it's mostly, well, who would be right for the role? And Thomas Hayden Church, I mean, he would have been perfect Venom, but he's also like perfect. I mean, pitch perfect for fucking Sandman. And he's like, he was, I think a year previously or so, he was nominated for Sideways. But I want to say on average, he's not like a big name that pops in when you think a big comic book movie. So I thought that was cool that like, no, he's not someone you think of, but he was perfect casting for that character.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite parts in there. Sandman in there, and then Thomas Hayden Church. I think anything he's in, he always just knocks it out of the park. But I think that's the thing too, is that's like one of those actors who's like, he's not a household name necessarily, but he's one of those like super actors that like anything you see him in, it's like he kills it. Yeah,
and even I'm gonna say like, even though I don't think he was perfect this time around, I did have like not his performance, but just the choice of him. Topher Grace, I do think, was interesting in that aspect because he is meant to be a polar opposite of Peter. And I guess you can say, well, Peter is like a photographer, but he's a nice boy and he studies, where like Eddie Brock was more of like, yeah, well, he like listens to death metal and works out in the dark and doesn't give a shit, doesn't call girls back. I honestly think the idea of like, I can see what they're doing, the duality. I'm like, well, what if this is Peter Parker without ethics? This is Peter Parker who would just step on necks to get whatever he wanted. Yeah, but he's also not like, he's not so like the whole way. He's kind of a douchebag. He's not Mandark about it. But he kind of, there's hints of it that sneak out, but he's almost trying to kind of keep it down to a certain extent,
I think that I like exactly what you said there, because I feel like what Sam Raimi does with both of them is really interesting, because like when Peter first sees like Eddie Brock at the Daily Bugle and like talking about photography, and Eddie Brock is like going all into like the technical like aspects and saying that like, oh, you put an extra few pounds like on Spider-Man, you're such an amateur photographer. That is something that actually happens like when you meet like other photographers that are like at varying degrees of of levels. I don't know. I just kind of like that I love that back and forth between the two of them, because it's like this.
Spencer, his opinion on photographers. Yeah.
It's like we had a whole hate rant on photographers because you know what I mean. Like, and I think it's like that with so many things where you see everybody like wants to talk shit on the next guy and so on like that. But yeah, no, I think that the anti kind of Peter way that Eric Foreman, Topher Grace kind of gives to the Eddie Brock variation does actually work for like what they're going for in this movie. It does, because in a sense, like a lot of times when you think of classic Eddie Brock one, it's just like he seems like such a completely different guy than, you know, Peter. It just seems like here's this big buff guy, you know, who's kind of angry at life, you know, really likes photography still. For some reason, he's like I do artistic pleasures and I work out and I'm really pissed at the world. You know what I mean? Shit, you know, fucking Henry Rollins would have been a badass.
Oh my god.
Fucking Venom. God. Oh my, like especially at this time period, it would have been like. But then again, once again, he would still be slightly too old to be. I think what they want is they want somebody who's pretty much the same age as there. And I said, in this movie's context and just for what it is, it does provide that balance, because here's the guy. It's like two guys into the same thing. It's almost that classic thing that this goes back to like school. And you know, like how like if you're into something and some other kid is too, people assume like, oh, you guys are both into like guitar, you guys are both into movie making, you guys will be the best of friends. And that's a lot of times not always the case, because there'll be some people like, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel that's what that character dynamic sort of has, is here's two guys that on paper sound like they should be, you know, they're into the same things, whatever. They're both kind of nerdy and everything like that. But no, they're still completely different people and they're never going to get along right.
It's kind of like Gen Z and millennials now. So,
but kind of on that note, though, it's also kind of like, because Eddie is also like very much he's into photography, where Peter is just like, well, I'm basically running the biggest con in the city. Technically, I'm kind of conning J. Jonah Jameson, but fuck him. He puts bad press about me. But before I made my photography joke, I actually cut you off, Marley. Was there something you're going to add before I accidentally, before I cut you off? I didn't see other opportunity. I'm like, I got to take it. Sorry. But yeah.
No, go ahead.
But no, I get what you mean. No, I think that the duality of him works. I honestly think he probably would have been better saved for another movie, because he does feel crowbarred in. And I say that because Venom proper doesn't drop into like the last like 15, 20 minutes of the movie. And for such a big character just to come in and be offed so quickly. And then on top of that, I mean, I know that you could maybe even though we see the Thing die, maybe in some way he could have been brought back somehow, like maybe a little like sliver that Connors has. It has like it knows the memories of the other one that just died, so it could make a new Eddie, clone it. That I don't know. There's something if you wanted to, but at the same time, because something like that happened in Ultimate Spider-Man, because Gwen Stacy was killed by Carnage, and then that Carnage had its genetic material and like basically spit out another Gwen like a few months later. So, and she was partially Carnage for a minute. So, but anyway, going off this though, I think most of my problems come with it. It's like two small things. It's the Harry has amnesia thing, which is a little silly and a little convenient. And I think what would have been better is if he was faking the whole fucking time. That would have made it so much more sinister and so much more fucked up if he was faking. Like, what? My memory, you know? I think if he got knocked out, he's just like, everything's fine now, Peter. And then he was just like playing them. That would have been way more fucked up. And then the other thing, I think the silly, dig on this, that type of shit, that's ill-timed. That should have been more like closer to like, that's a little ill-timed, because that happens right before he goes all kind of like elbowing Mary Jane in the face and all this other crazy shit going down, you know what I mean? And right before Venom, like I almost thought the movie had another like, well, if this wacky shit right here is happening, we must have another like like 30, 40 minutes going on. And then it just like, no, you're down to the last 15 minutes now. Like, oh, we are? Oh shit. Okay. That's a weird place to put this. You know what I mean? So the only way I knew was like, we're almost beginning at the end, because when he pulled up the suit and they had the big triumphant swell, like, oh, that sounds like ending music.
Well, you know what's so weird that you say that, because in my mind, I was thinking like, oh shit, because when I was thinking about watching all three of these movies, all I was doing was going like, how am I going to fit this into like time? I was like, that third one's probably 3 hours long almost, or 2 hours and 45 minutes. And then it's like, oh, it's only 2 hours and 20 minutes. And that's where I feel that like, this is one of those movies that probably could have used like an extra, it could have been one of those epic movies where it's like, fuck it, let's just make it, add an extra 10, even 20 minutes to it, make it like 2.5 to maybe 240. And in that extra, like really in just anywhere from 5 to 20 more minutes or so, I think you really could have added all that Venom stuff that would have fleshed out that character just a little bit more, extended just a little bit more action scenes in there too. As I said, really just having him go on. Eddie Brock gets that like right after the bell scene where like fucking the Venom symbiote falls on him. He could have, if for some reason he could spy. That's Peter Parker, like 50 stories up, like fucking eagle eye vision.
He's got the photographer's eye.
Yeah, literally. But it's just having that Venom part where like he goes off like almost like one of those ones that he gets the suit and maybe he runs through town like, "Whoa!" Like he doesn't know what's really going on. Is he almost becomes kind of more primal in this thing, and just to show him kind of going and terrorizing it. And in the part of doing it, he sort of has a learning experience of how this sort of works. And then maybe just have him just being like, oh man, I really like this Carnage. Like just have him like take out somebody, like, he's in like a park and he just like, does one of those things where he absorbs them. You know what I mean? And even too, you could have him, this could also explain that like maybe this is how he becomes a little bit bigger, is when he starts absorbing people, he starts to become more looking like a traditional Venom kind of look. He starts to get thicker and fuller and so on like that. Just a couple small things here, just to maybe add that, and then maybe a couple more if you want to have a couple extra scenes with maybe even Peter and some other stuff, just to lead up to our final battle.
Yeah, I don't know. Going in, because like I don't really have like any knowledge of like Venom, like from like the comics or like previously, but the thing that I think that like, this film is like the perfect length, just because it like. I know we're kind of upset that we wanted more like Eddie Brock's like storyline, but to me, like the main villain of this is really the symbiote. Like, I'm not sure if like that's accurate to the comics, how the symbiote is like finds like a host that is angry. It's attracted to like anger and kind of like feeds off of that. Is that pretty accurate to the comics? Or
yeah, I mean, he gets it under control at some point.
Well, because I'll say this. This is I feel like what this movie is really more based off of is everybody kind of looks at like, oh, it's like a Venom story. It's like, no. There's literally that Spider-Man comic in like 89 or 88 or whatever. And I got that one, like the graphic novel of it, where it's just a symbiote one, where it's just a symbiote comes from space. Peter gets a hold of it. And it's pretty much all that stuff that makes it pretty accurate. It's more like, they could almost have kept that symbiote thing. This is like another way I guess you could have gone about it. I mean, I don't want to be like armchair, like, revising this, but is almost, you have all the symbiote stuff. And then what it is, you put your post-credit scene or something like that is Eddie Brock after he's all pissy about losing his job for fucking a bad Photoshop job. But, he literally gets the symbiote, and that's like almost like leads into a full Venom Spider-Man 4 one. But you just actually you still keep everything else in this one. You just save the Eddie Brock thing is going to come next, or Eddie Brock's still in it, but the Venom part is going to come next. But it actually is pretty accurate to that comic, though, because that comic doesn't have Venom in it. It's almost like the same thing that, like, speaking of Venom, that Batman Venom one, where Batman, he gets a hold of the drug Venom, but all way before Bane, and he's shooting it up and everything like that so he can save, so another kid doesn't fucking drown in the river because he's not strong enough to lift a 700-pound boulder. And in the process, he learns this is terrible, but then they use it like, oh, a couple issues later, boom, or, a couple years later, we got a use for this Venom, and now there's this character Bane, and that's the same almost sort of thing they did with the symbiote thing. It's like, okay, well, Spider-Man had a bad day and everything like that. He realizes he doesn't need this suit and so on like that, and then a couple of, year or so later, they're like, shit, we're going to use this for a kind of an anti-hero villain character.
And I just like how Eddie and Peter deal with like their anger, and like that kind of like ends up like with like the demise of like at least one of them, Eddie, at the end of the movie. And I think that like I think the problem that this movie has is like Peter's act of revenge is very emotional for all audiences. Eddie's not so much. Where it's just like, yeah, you lost your job, like you said, Spencer. It's like you lost your job, like doing like a bad Photoshop. And I feel like if Eddie had like more of like an arc where like maybe like Gwen like dies instead of like Peter saving her from like the falling building, then you would kind of have like more of like an act of revenge on Eddie's side. But losing your job, I don't really see it as comparison where losing your uncle, losing your job. Like there's no like it's kind of like two stark differences. So
I mean, I will say that Eddie, or we're just gonna say this real quick, is that Eddie, he loses his job, but photography is his favorite thing. So I will say that I think that's the thing, is he's blacklisted, and that's what makes it more. It's not like he just lost, like, I lost a good job, whatever, I'll just move to it. It's like, oh no, this like really kind of screwed him over.
Yeah, it's just I see it as like he didn't have to Photoshop that. Like that was his choice. Like Peter didn't have a choice where his uncle died. It's kind of like that dude from, I don't know his name, but that dude from IGN that plagiarized like a whole bunch of reviews and then got I don't know his name, but yeah, it's kind of like that same situation. So
he has no name. He plagiarized that too. Yeah.
Just like IGN.
You think I would remember? I watched that 3-hour H Bomber guy like plagiarism video, so you think I'd remember that dude's name? But yeah, no. But the thing about something about Eddie, I do think it's interesting because usually in other Spider-Man medium, whenever Spider-Man gets the symbiote, it's a moment of where he turns into Venom for a second. He's always about to kill this villain or about to kill that villain. And then he turns into like Venom for a second, like goes full symbiote, like actually with the jaws, the mouth, all that. And then he's like, what have I become? And then he gets it off him. And this one is just like, he fucking kills him. He didn't have to turn into Venom to do it. And then he just like calls himself like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't do this. And by that point he kind of like, so he's able to almost put that thing aside. He's almost able to recognize it. But when he's at his angriest and darkest, that's where it's the hardest to get off. So I kind of think they change it in that aspect to fit the script, but not in a way of like what I was saying earlier, not that Hollywood we know better, but in a way where it just fits the story more in that context. And they don't really even explain it. You're able to kind of parse it together, which I appreciate. But at the same time, there's also a little bit of that, like I had no real sympathy for Eddie Brock, but like I kind of said earlier, that scene of like Eddie, it was only coffee and just that Manchurian candidate stare he has, I'm like, I'm not surprised he's like, dear God, please kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man took my job because I did bad Photoshop. I want you to kill him. It'll make me happy tonight. Like I'm not surprised he's going to church and saying that. So like, it's also unsettling where he's like, sir, like the kind of like the subtleties, like he's not saying dear God, he's saying sir, like it's like some kind of authoritative figure, like dad God is going to come down and beat him, so it's kind of like it's the extra little small things that he just kind of like slides by, which I appreciate, which I think kind of develop more. That's just, maybe that's me looking too much into it, but I don't know people who make a prayer and say sir. It's me, Brock, Eddie Brock. Like, it's you and God. You could just whatever. I mean, I don't believe in God, but I imagine like, yo, God, what's up? You know who it is, So it's, I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I love that part where he goes there because it's like, oh, you must feel like, oh, he's so down on his luck now. He's even going to church. He's going to Catholic church. Fucking Matt Murdock's probably there right now too, and it's one of those ones. I just love how he goes in there. It's like, no, he goes to church to ask to kill somebody. I'm like, he's that kind of guy.
He thinks it's divine intervention too. Because like,
he probably does. It's like shit. I literally asked for a fucking bell start to ring. This guy up there screaming like, the priest is just raping a boy or something like that. And he's like, I go to check it out because I'm interested to see what's going on. Shit, I'm in the wild world. And I go up there, and all of a sudden, Peter's up there, probably getting raped for all I know. I assumed he was in the weird shit. He's quiet, And then next thing you know, this ooze, probably priest jizz, starts raining down on me, and I get superpowers.
Priest jizz.
It's black. It's black from all that condensed evil.
Yeah, I knew these sons of bitches were so evil that yeah, that's what it does. They go from having that pure white jizz to being pure black, and it just landed on me, and I absorbed it, and oh man, I felt so good from it. You know what I mean? And I take it back. I used to think it was wrong that they raped children. No, they were all getting superpowers, apparently.
Imagine how...
all you had to do is just go to confession and all your sins are wiped clean. So.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it took. It's just, old Eddie at the confession booth.
Imagine this movie if he did think this was some kind of divine intervention that he got. So the last 20 minutes of the movie, everything he says is a Bible verse or some shit, So because he thinks he's doing God's will. So God damn it, Sam. We know you really want to do another Evil Dead-esque thing, but God damn it. He starts speaking Latin backwards or some shit. Oh, fucking God damn it, Sam.
This is where we
let dig on this slide by. Yeah.
This is where we start the release the Raimi cut. If Snyder can get a 4-hour Justice League cut, then we can get a 6-hour Spider-Man 3 cut.
Yeah, exactly. Where was that one? Even speaking of Evil Dead, in Spider-Man 2, there is one scene that's very Evil Dead-like in that, where it's the one where Doc Ock's on the operating table.
Yeah,
and then
so Evil Dead.
when he wakes up, it's I kind of forgot oh yeah, this goes 100% Evil Dead in this right here.
Close-up screaming shots and all that.
Yeah, screaming. There's that lady getting drugged back, Drag Me to Hell style, if her nails digging into the ground. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that. Of course, throughout the movie, you could point out some oh, here's a shot like that and so on. But that one's a full-on Book of the Dead just coming to life.
Straight up. So,
which I feel bad for Mary Jane in part 3 because I feel everything in this movie, she is someone's grabbing her by the neck, slamming her against the wall, and telling her she can't sing. That's her whole thing in number 3.
The one thing about 3, especially with it has some relation to Mary Jane, is I think it's she gets fired from that restaurant where she's singing.
Oh, no, she gets fired from the
Broadway
play.
Broadway,
the Broadway play. But then she goes back to the restaurant where she waited tables and she was singing.
It's not the same one. It's not she's at that diner where that guy's yo, bitch, make sure you're here on time next time. Don't fucking cheaping out on me.
It's a jazz diner, so
I think it might be the same diner, but there's a shot
that guy wasn't there.
It's either that or that guy made a lot of money in between this and really upgraded the place.
Probably. But I it's a weird shot at artists where there's the owner of that place basically puts up a help wanted sign, but it says waiters and singers. What are you trying to say in that situation?
He's like, whoa. I'm only sending out one W-2, and I don't want 2 different fucking people here. I'm already paying a shit ton for workman's comp. You know what I mean? If you could double duty this, you're gonna fucking do it.
You're washing dishes, and you're also singing jazz hits from time.
Oh, and you're cleaning toilets. Don't think you're getting away from that.
This is going to be a tangent, but I think it's worth it because it kind of goes into the same type of job. There's one time my wife and I, we were in Santa Cruz and we were just let's stop and get some Italian food somewhere. And we didn't realize, we just looked up Italian places and just went in, and we didn't realize it was kind of sports bar-y, kind of family oriented. We didn't realize that at the time. Oh, fuck it, we're already here, whatever. It was just one of those very tacky kind of you're let's get some buffalo blue cheese Alfredo. What the fuck is this? Whatever, we're already here. Fine.
It's a fusion restaurant.
Kind of. It was American, Italian, whatever. Okay. At some point, so here's what happens. There's all these young people going around as servers, and then hey, get ready for the pizza dough dance. What the fuck? And then all the servers, no smile, no expression, except one. There's one that was really amped, but all these people, between the age of 18 to 23, fuck. So they all go out, they get a wad of pizza dough, and they're playing Michael Jackson, Bruno Mars, Maroon 5, whatever, and they're doing like some kind of special choreographed dance while tossing pizza dough in the air. And they're thinking, "Fuck! I got to get drinks to table 5. I got to get that slamming salmon Italian pizza to like table 15, whatever the fuck." They're thinking all this shit in their mind. Like, I got to stop and do the fucking Thriller dance while throwing a pizza in the air and put on the one glove. It's the Michael Jackson song. And the thing is, they all did it perfectly. They all did it in sync. They all did it robotically and very talented. But they all had the same like, I hate this. Deadpan, except one person. One person is just like one guy in the back, like, just like just all into it, So like the idea of like, don't get me wrong, Broadway to sing and waitress, not ideal, but it could have been worse because all of these kids looked like they were just ready to like, tomorrow's the day I bring a gun to work. They all kind of have that vibe to them.
Oh shit.
Well, I will say, because there's one of those ones, like Mary Jane she's acted kind of shitty throughout the most of this movie, where like it's almost like one of those ones where you just sort of want to slap her, be like, yo, shut the fuck up. Because that part, because Peter's doing like the best he can. He's like, it's like, don't worry about it. It's one bad review. Shit, you should see. I go to fucking work every day, and my boss tells me that Spider-Man is the fucking devil. I'm Spider-Man. He puts it on the front page of the Daily Bugle every fucking day. It says Spider-Man's doing something heinous. Like I have a bad review every day of the week, and you get this one thing, whatever, that last play you're in the other movie was doing fine. Now it's like you got one bad one, and let's be honest, I read that fucking book on Broadway actors. Once you get one good gig going, you never go back to work again because you just take the fucking welfare check and wait till the next one comes. That's what they all do.
Well, to be fair, I did feel a little bad for her because the thing is, it's not that like, it's that like, I can understand you just lose the job, you get pissed off, you want someone to hear it. You're like, man, this happened. Well, let me make it about me and me being Spider-Man. Like, all right, I get it. I fucking get it. So in that context, I kind of get why she was pissed off. I think that they should have given her something more to do to balance her out, to give her something more than just being like the victim the whole movie.
Well,
but in that context,
woe is me, like,
But I think that in her context, I got where it was coming from. The context of like, you're pissed off, you're stressed out, and then to have someone minimize it and not even acknowledge it, I can understand that frustration. But at the same time, I think they could have written her more. Sorry, Marley, go ahead.
No, well, not only does Peter minimize like the whole situation and realize and say like he has bad reviews like all the time. Literally, the next scene, like this is like Spider-Man Day, and Peter's like having like the time of his life, and then and basically like encourages Gwen Stacy to like kiss Spider-Man in the same like scenario that Mary Jane kisses Spider-Man in like the first movie. And all this time, Mary Jane is just watching everything that's going on, just like, really. And I'm saying the same thing, because it's like, Peter, was that really necessary for you to like ask like Gwen Stacy to kiss you in that scenario, knowing everything that's going on with your relationship up until this point? Like I'm putting that on Peter, because like that's kind of fucked up, to be honest.
Well, let's be honest. This is Peter's first, ever date. So it's like, I don't think he doesn't really know this content. He's only seen douchebags his entire life. Think about it. It's like, it's one of those ones. It's just like, he's like, well, shit, this is pretty much what fucking, what Flash would have done. This is what, Harry would have done. This is what Eddie would have done. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
I think the frustrating thing about this movie, for me at least, is the fact that never gets brought up ever again. Like, it gets brought up a little bit.
Except for that at the French restaurant, where Bruce Campbell keeps thinking that like, is it time? Is it time?
Yeah. it kind of gets brought up a little bit, but that's just because Peter basically says like, oh yeah, Gwen Stacy is my lab partner, and then that's when MJ gets jealous. Like the jealousy like starts, even though the jealousy started way back like on Spider-Man Day. I don't know. It's a small issue I have with the film. It's just kind of weird that they don't really bring it up.
It also kind of helps, that scene also kind of helps generate some of that scene right there. I think her suspicion is kind of warranted because the thing is, he sees Gwen and he waves to Gwen, and then the waiter thinks he's waving to him, so he's coming, and then Mary Jane seems like, and then she comes up like, oh hi, So then you see a reaction. She's like, what the fuck was that? And they didn't really even stop to explain it, So it's just like, okay, so there's this girl you kind of wave at, like, don't, what the fuck are you doing? Don't, my fucking woman's here. Don't fucking show up, And then like, that's the same chick you made out with on stage. And now I'm just finding out about her. And now you're like, so in her defense, like there's reason to be suspicious there for a second, he's got his spider groupies and all that. And I'm sorry, one of the reasons why this is going to kind of derail it again. Now, the first time I know I showed this to Spencer, because Spencer, on the camera this way, Spencer, because like first time Spencer saw this was at his place. I brought the DVD over, and I remember it. It wasn't the first time I saw the movie, but it was the first time Spencer did, and we were with a friend, and it was the first night I smoked weed. So, and he didn't have anything to eat at his house, so it was a little bit of like, well, fuck, But, and I remember by the point it kicked in was actually at like the Spider-Man day, and I don't know who said it or who said what, but somebody said something like, oh, she's pissed off that he's like making out with her upside down. He could have just fucking like raw dogged her right there on stage over a chair.
Okay, everybody's cheering in the audience and so on like that. He pulls out, just fucking shoots the water cum in that kid's face.
Like it was one of those things like I don't know why that just popped back into my head. We were talking about that, and I just like, oh yeah, this movie's also the first time I ever smoked weed. Not when I first saw it, but yeah. So
I was actually thinking literally like the second we brought up Spider-Man Day. I was thinking of that too. I was like, oh yeah.
Just a reaction, like just the idea of somebody being like, "Oh yeah, he only kissed her. Be grateful he didn't just fuck her right there." And just saw it shot. He's being, yeah,
Spider-Man. Was that you or was that Spider-Man? Oh, that was definitely Spider-Man. I would have Peter, me doing that. Come on, Mary Jane. You know me since we're fucking 6 years old. Like, come on. Yeah. Spider-Man. He's one of those horn dogs. You know what I mean? Got a mind of his own.
He's like, I'm a different person when I'm Spider-Man. A completely different person. I'm not Peter Parker. I know you know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but I'm a completely different person. Don't worry about it. So.
He's like, don't worry. It was when the suit's on, it's completely different. Like, Peter, I'm buttoning your shirt real quick. What? I'm Peter right now. I'm buttoning your shirt. He's like, you got the fucking suit on right now. You're always Spider-Man. You don't even wash that thing anymore.
Like two servers like scurry out from underneath the table and just like.
But no, really actually. I just want to say this real quick. Is that scene right there? Mary Jane's all in the total right. Like that one does totally work. It's just like the previous one where she's just like, like she wants like Peter to be like, yeah, fuck him. Let's go down there tonight and fucking light that Broadway theater on fire. It's like that's almost like what she wants to go on. She's like, yeah, I want to watch him fucking die. I want those two fucking bald director guys to fucking burn up in flames.
I just want to see that. I want to see that scene now where Spider-Man is Peter Parker just runs down there, just walks in like, excuse me, sir, we're having rehearsal. What the fuck? Just like grabs him, just starts slamming him over the chairs. It's not even like, it's not shot like all like a dynamic like Sam Raimi action scene. It's just him just like no, just getting chucked across the room. And he's like looking at the security guard like, what? It's like he doesn't have the black suit on yet. Shit.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones there, where it's like shit. Like good thing Mary Jane doesn't go too much farther because like if just a couple bad reviews in the fucking New York Times is gonna get her, like wait till like a bunch of other people start fucking commenting on her on the internet.
Oh shit.
Well, I guess yeah. Well, they even said they all said the reviews. Just one review. They all said it, honey. Now let's get back to rehearsing. God, this fucking bitch, this stupid bitch can't fucking sing. You know, so
I love when those two directors walk back, or when like the director and producer walk back, and they look at you like, yeah, you're like, yeah, we did good that way. Yeah, that went well. Like they're impressed with themselves. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? She didn't fucking burn down the place, so yeah, we're doing right.
But like, I guess, yeah. So Spider-Man 3, it's not perfect, but I definitely like it more than I did before. Like, I don't love it like when I first saw it, but I still really like it. It's still a really good movie, you know?
Well,
yeah.
To talk a little bit more about like that French restaurant, like
Bruce
scene,
Campbell.
like where Peter is trying to propose to Mary Jane and just fails like epically. I'm single, probably not going to get married anytime soon, but this is like Peter's like just whole thought process on like oh, I'm gonna put the ring in like the champagne bottle and she's gonna find it. Those scenarios always like give me tons of anxiety because like what if she doesn't even see the ring and
swallows it
and just like, oh, I'm choking. Just like
and dies right there, like, just like that. That's what happens. Like,
yeah,
what if she just
dies like right on the spot and just like this is a horrible like outcome for Mary Jane. So.
She's ripping into him, and she just grabs the glass. She's like pointing and yelling at him, and then she's just like, it's like no, just downs it in one shot. Like it's like, you stupid bitch, no! Chives at her, just like trying to strangle the ring.
Peter just jumps up.
I love Peter shouting out, the guy who like never swears like, you stupid bitch, and jumps across the table.
He gets up from his seat and he's just like, I want to marry you, you dumb bitch.
Starts fucking like just slapping her and giving her like the Heimlich right there on the spot. Bruce Campbell's like, more and more.
This is how we do it in France, yes. Penny.
But am I crazy for like thinking like having anxiety for like those scenes? Because like elaborate proposal scenes seem weird to me.
When I proposed to my wife, I waited for like nobody else to be around for in case if she shot me down. I'm like, oh, it's just us. All right, cool. Like now that everyone's here and watching us, all eyes on you.
Now that I got my film crew.
You didn't put like the ring in like a bottle of water, and your wife was just like, "Oh, let me. I'm parched after this long hike."
Or bake it in some muffins.
Oh man.
Yeah, nothing like saving some jewelry, Schindler's List style. Yeah.
But yeah, well,
okay, so I'm not crazy. So
no, you're not.
I like to think of those kind of things of like you know, almost like those ways that like somebody could kind of die, and it's like there's nothing like epic or like thing about it. But it's just like one of those natural things that's just like, oh, that fucking happens once in a while. That, you know, they swallow something and choke, and right there, that's it. You know, it's the classic one where it's like I always think of like having like that death scene and like for like you can have a real strong character, but like what happens? Oh no, they slip on something on the stairs, fall back, hit the back of their head, and that's it. That's just how they go. That's fucking real life. That feels like some kind of like 70s ending, but yeah.
Just like like go ahead, Marley.
I'm thinking of another scenario where she drinks like the champagne and swallows like the ring. Nothing happens, and they get in this huge fight, and Peter just sends her like a quick text, just like, "Hey, can you let me know in like a couple of days, like yes or no?"
Well, let's be honest. Peter can't afford fucking text messaging. He uses a payphone outside of his own apartment.
Or he can't afford the minute text. He can't afford the minutes for that.
Remember, this is still a time period where you gotta like pay for like individual texts. Like you know what I mean? Like unless you're Harry fucking Osborn, you don't have unlimited texting.
Or payphones exist in like apartment buildings, which. Like I speaking of that apartment building, probably my favorite scene in Spider-Man 3 is like when he's walking up the stairs. He's like full on emo Spidey at this point, and the landlord comes over, and he's just like asking for the rent, and Peter just turns to him and says, just like, "You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door," and just slams the door right in his face. It's such a loose cannon moment from like. Tobey Maguire, like the performance, and just like I didn't expect that from Peter, and I just like the reactions from the landlord and like that girl that he has the hots for. I can't remember her name. Sorry.
Well, let's be honest. That girl has the hots for Peter, and it's just like she's like that one. She likes him so much that like, oh, he's got a wife or he's got a girlfriend. Well, good for him. Good. You know what? I love him even more. Like that's how much she likes him. Like, I'm never leaving my father's apartment, so I can only dream.
I'll bake him some cookies. I'll bake him some cookies, and I can
just watch him eat them. Just stare there watching him, like, eat the cookies, drink the milk.
No, she feeds him. She feeds him.
Feeds him,
which is such an awkward scene too. So it's just, whereas he's talking to like Dr. Connors, right?
Yeah, Dr. Connors is like, whoa, you didn't put this anywhere in your body, Peter, did you? Like,
not just in my butt.
Yeah, oh.
I just jammed them up there, just clenched, just to see what would it do back. Yeah, no, I was going to say the girl. She's like, plus that family's poor because each movie, it's like in number 2, she wears the same outfit whenever you see her. In number 3, she wears the same outfit whenever you see her. It's like, this is your one clothes for the months. Do not sweat too much.
They're poor because they're only tenant. Peter never pays the fucking bills. And he's like, he's a good boy. I like him. No money, but good boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like, you didn't touch the symbiote shit, did you? You just go back to what you guys were saying and just be like, sure or not? Like, what do I need to tell you? You're like, I mean, there's even that part like, you're the smart kid in the class. Other nerds bully you. We saw the beginning of the movie. I mean, 1950s spitball style too.
In college of all places. Let's be honest. Who's getting bullied in college? Like, I'm not saying that it probably hasn't happened, but I do not think that that's probably nearly. By that point, people have sort of grown out of it. And obviously, if you can afford to be in college, you're not thinking of bullying people still.
Just these guys, like, he's so nerdy. We can't turn this down. We have to take it. We're nerds ourselves.
It's one of those ones like. The opportunity presents itself every fucking day. I can't resist.
I think it's just because, like, in college, like, you've already become pretty much who you are at that point, and you're just kind of like finding the people that are like you. So that's the reason why people don't get bullied in college, which is why that scene is kind of awkward in a way. So it's like,
well, I think because most people that do the bullying get sent off to the army or something like that. So this college is out of the question.
like people will do them like fucking like, plus bullies get more creative, like spitballs and like fucking reflecting a mirror into his eye, like
yeah. Like, yeah, okay. I feel like that stuff there, it's like, okay, that seems like a elementary school prank. I mean, high school's even a little bit
from the 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. From the old school. Like even Captain America's like, you know what? They weren't even doing it in my time period. Let's be honest.
This is kind of mean a little bit, but like let's not forget that, like, based on like how these characters looked from the first Spider-Man, they looked like they were 30 years old. So it's like maybe they have like some slow development or something like that, where they acting like, I don't know. It's just like, that's really messed up. I'm sorry, but.
No, worse things have been said on this show. Don't worry about that at all.
Yeah, you could say no wrong on this show. I like to believe that it's all freedom, but yeah, no, it is kind of like that. It's just weird, bizarre stuff. I just don't even know why that's really written in there. It just felt like it's there just to be there. Be like, oh yeah, well,
throw back to some '60s issues, maybe.
Yeah. Well, once a target, always a target, kind of thing. But yeah, Spider-Man 3. I will say this, as far as the whole trilogy goes, this trilogy is actually a pretty solid one. Like, you know what I mean?
Solid.
It's like, because a lot of great trilogies, a lot of times, or I'll just say a lot of trilogies, there's always one movie that kind of drops the ball. And I'll use like the Dark Knight example. Is Batman Begins, Dark Knight, pretty much perfect movies. Dark Knight Rises, kind of drops the ball. Still good, but it's that one that always kind of bums me out because I always go, damn it, this could have been a perfect trilogy, a la Star Wars and Indiana Jones, the original ones. Like, where like there's no complaint. It's just a personal preference which one you like more. That could have been the Dark Knight one, but it's just kind of like there's just that one part where it's just like, God, or not the one part, but just the one movie that's just like, it's just not up there. With Spider-Man 3, I used to always think of it being on that same boat as Dark Knight kind of Rises. Like, it's like compared to the first two. But really just watch through again, I'm like, God, it's actually not that far behind. I think it's it does have more problems. I will say it kind of does than the other ones. But then there's still a lot of good that it does that almost makes it sort of superior in other ways. that I think kind of equals it out to being, in a sense, I'll say this one of the best movie trilogies around.
I think so. After this recent watch, I've kind of feel like, because I always loved 1 and 2, and then 3 I liked but wasn't perfect. And I still like it, but I still think the tone and vibe, it's consistent the whole way through. It doesn't feel like a drastic jump or departure, and so I still think that this is probably more of a higher level trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like the reason why Spider-Man 3 always kind of got like a bad rap, like when people saw it in theaters initially, is because I think like people have like the same mindset like to this day, like when they're going into movies. I know I don't, but I think it's the whole expectations thing. Just because Spider-Man 2 is pretty much widely accepted as being the best superhero movie ever made. And to follow up like the best superhero movie ever made with Spider-Man 3 is kind of like it's not like it's a bad movie. It's just like, whoa, that was a choice. Kind of like what you said, Ryan. It's just like, and I feel like now, like since there's some time between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3 since the release of that, you can kind of watch like this movie on its own. Like this film is actually really great. Like when you watch it on its own and kind of and can like appreciate like these character arcs. Like I love like the way kind of like Peter and Harry kind of like sort out their issues, because we all like seeing like best friend dynamics kind of like succeed like on screen, and like because you never want to see them fight and or go through like hard times. So that moment like when Harry comes in on the glider, I was watching it at home, but I might as well be cheering like on my couch, because like it's a really great moment like when he finally like saves Peter at that moment. So
they are a little, I think they're just slightly too buddy by that point, but I do like the fact that he's coming in and the thing that basically the same gear that he fought in the first one is now helping him out, like fighting alongside him. Like I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the movie does definitely like come full circle and everything like that, and even just having Mary Jane finally just be like, you know what, let's go. We came together. I mean, I banged everybody else. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm leaving with you, Forrest Gump. And going with that kind of way. It is interesting. Marley said like people look at like Spider-Man 2 as the #1 superhero movie. I'm like, that's interesting. I would have never even. Don't get me wrong, I like Spider-Man 2, but I feel like that's a tough one against like some Batmans and things like that out there. But I think it's just because it hits that. The reason why is that this was kind of just the right time period where like it was just a glorious time period for superhero movies. I'm not saying that every single one of them was firing on all cylinders, but like that early 2000s era was pretty darn overall dialed in with some really good experiences. And even if the movies weren't really great, you still were having a fun time checking out what was next. You know what I mean? You might have got some where you're like, yeah, Hulk could have been a little bit more interesting, or Elektra had 3 action scenes in an entire movie, but the special features were fucking badass. Like, you found like other reasons around like, why it was. But, I think that's what it is. It's kind of like, it was sort of the golden age of superheroes, like when it was still brand new and fresh and everything like that, and it hadn't kind of like spun the wheels and found a formula to stick to real hard. People were still experimenting and stuff at this time period, but yeah, this trilogy just kind of, it is pretty special, especially even if I compare it. Let's just say like superhero trilogies. We'll forget like other movie trilogies, but like this going with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then God, I'm trying to think of another trilogy that you would probably go like.
Shrek
you could kind of say,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there's Shrek trilogy. The other one that's a pretty strong superhero one. It's kind of a weird one because it's like just the way it's like kind of doesn't match itself just in titles, but like is the Captain America trilogy is pretty solid.
Yeah, that one's pretty solid. I mean, the third one feels more like an Avengers.
Yeah,
movie,
that's why I feel like it's a title thing. But all 3 of those movies are my favorite of like the DC or not the MCU like Disney variations.
Yeah. Before we leave out, let's want to cover the soundtrack on this one real quick.
Yes. Because this one I don't think has as many like doesn't have as many like rock and pop songs like the other 2 do.
It's kind of around the same. It's kind of more in line with the second one, more so than the first one. Now, there's a couple of bands on here I never heard of again, and then a couple of bands like, oh, I really like these guys, and then a couple of bands where I'm like, oh, there's no one I actually hate. There's just stuff that you just probably wouldn't listen to again or whatever. So, Snow Patrol is the title. Is the big, and I don't really care about Snow Patrol, but I do like that song Signal Fire. I do like that song when they played the credits. The bands I do like, The Killers had a song for this.
Nice.
Yeahs, I like them. Wolf Mother, and they were pretty big at the time.
Yeah,
Wolf Mother was like, this is like around the time where they were just taking off. And same thing with The Killers. So those are two very fitting. The Walkmen, don't know them. Black Mountain, don't know them. The Flaming Lips, what I know of the Flaming Lips I like. I don't really know much of the Flaming Lips. Simon Dawes, I don't really know who Simon Dawes is, but they're on there. Chubby Cheeker, let's do the twist. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Rogue Wave, don't know Rogue Wave, don't know Coconut Records. And then a Spider-Man alumni, Jet. Jet had a song for this. Nice. And then this is where a lot of the other, I don't know who the fuck these guys are. Sounds Under Radio, the WYOs, and then the Oohals? I don't know. Yeah, so this one had a lot more like weird like things of the moment that didn't really probably stand the test of time as much. But you got some big bands like The Killers, the AIs, and Wolf Mother. So
Yeah.
What was the song? Sorry, Spencer, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead. I was just gonna say it has a lot of those like it's that cool time period where it's kind of modern day tunes, but everybody was doing that like 60s, 70s style jams, which
mod rock type stuff.
Yeah, like Wolf Mother and Jet and all that stuff and Killers.
What's the song that Tobey Maguire infamously dances to when he's like fully ready?
Oh, that's actually not on the soundtrack, but that is it's not Al Green. Is it Al Green? No, it's not Al Green. It's James Brown. That's James Brown. He's dancing to.
Forgive me for not.
No, it's all good. It took me a second.
But it's all good dancing.
I'm very surprised that that's not on the soundtrack.
You think it would for how much of a scene it takes up, because they have this. We put in Chubby Cheekers from when they're making a fucking omelet, but we can't put in James Brown. Come on,
right?
Well, it's always a weird thing when soundtracks are though. Is like they never ever have all the songs. Then if you're lucky, you'll get like that deluxe soundtrack later in life.
Yeah,
and especially like even like to this day, like that song is basically like it people remember like that dance like more than the actual movie now. Like they're like, I'm not sure, like Spencer, you were talking about how they re-release like these movies like in theaters. When that scene came up for Spider-Man 3, people were dancing along like in the movie theater, like to that moment. And I don't know, I was just surprised that that song's not like on the soundtrack. So
well, it's also something to the effect of like that was like a what the fuck moment in the movie theaters. Like everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing? And now it's just kind of we've come to expect it. And so now when that scene happens, this is like, yeah, just fucking go, dude. Just fucking go. Do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's just became kind of cheese, and that's like where they've just sort of accepted it. And that's the thing, is I think this movie, the first time people watch it, pretty much just about anybody, it has an initial kind of shock value in it. Even if the rest of the movie stuff's really good, it's just those handful of goofy moments throw you for a curve. But once you kind of accept them and come back to the movie, then it kind of equals it out a lot more. And I feel like then you can kind of go, okay, whatever. I'll take Topher Grace, fine. Disco dancing, okay. A weird jazz emo kind of thing that makes not a whole lot of sense. And obviously they spent too much of a budget on this, let's be honest. That could have gone to more Venom, but whatever. But you just kind of take it for what it is, and then it's not so bad. It doesn't really like, there's nothing in this movie where you're like, God, there's that fucking scene. Like it was, I almost have to just fast forward past. There's none of that in this one. You just kind of go, yeah, it's decent enough, whatever,
The one thing I do kind of want to bring up before you guys start wrapping up, like talk a little bit more about like Harry Osborn's kind of like whole arc, a little bit. But there's one line like in this in this entire movie that gets me laughing like every single time. It's not like a it's not like a laughable like scene because it's very emotional, but it's a scene where his dad is like obviously like talking to him and telling him to avenge him, and his dad is basically like saying like, remember me, avenge me, take down Spider-Man, and James Franco just like looks up and he's just like, yes, father. And I'm just
yes.
Every single time I'm just like, yes, father.
The part that always
Yes,
makes me
father.
laugh about that too is like I think of when Willem Dafoe's like, avenge me. I picture
Red
like
Dawn.
that same scene, yes, in Red Dawn, where the dad like it's like Papa, and he's like, avenge me, son, kill those dirty commies.
Yes, father. Yes, father.
Yes, Papa.
Well, I guess that's the thing. I guess madness runs the family, because I can believe William Dafoe just like talks shit to himself in the mirror, but at the exact same time, like maybe it's hereditary, maybe it's the gas. I don't know, but it doesn't
Harry
have
does
as much
gas
of a,
himself.
he does gas himself, but I could just imagine. I could already just imagine William Dafoe is just does Green Goblin a couple times a week to himself. You know, I just see that. So it's not as effective when Harry does it, but it makes sense. It makes sense for the story. Pass it on the torch, and that happened in the comics, so I get it. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also gotta say, since we're talking about Harry, I like how Harry doesn't, when Peter says like, your dad didn't kill himself. He was, we were just in a conflict and it just kind of was an accident and so on. Like, there's like, fuck you, Peter, you're just fucking lying to me. And then the butler's like, Harry, when your dad was there and I had to heal him with my magic wand of power, I noticed that I could tell from the incisions from my days at the war that it was clearly not the act of a spider, but it was the act of his own glider that came crashing in, leaving in the scars. Here, watch. If we pull up the diagram really quickly, like I love how the butler says that. He's like, really, God, you know what? For the last 7 fucking years, I've been thinking it's been, Peter this whole time. And I know he's told me a couple times and, stood there dumbfounded looking at me and doing that, like, trying to get up. I'm glad you brought this up. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for you, Butler, like, I don't know where I'd be at. I'm gonna have a change of heart. Even though fucking Peter threw a fucking Pokeball like grenade into a pile of grenades that I was laying in like a fucking asshole. That's almost reason enough for him to fucking hate Peter more, I feel like. You know what I mean?
I just like what you just added. Like, from my time in the war, like the Krauts used a lot of spiders.
It was actually, it was a much older war, because I don't think you realize my age, but because I'm a butler, I live longer than normal people. It was actually the war past the 1800s, where it was the wild, wild west, and we had a lot of spider injuries at this time period.
I just like as he says this. Like,
Steampunk was just a new thing, and there was a Confederate man who really invested heavily into this, and it took a black fellow to take him down.
He had robot spider legs at one point in time. I just wish that as he was saying this, like suddenly just like this zoom in past the old man and just rapid shots of the things he's explaining, like in this rapid flash. Like, we're doing this big giant like lore dump, like 5 minutes till the movie's over.
Leave it to butlers to just spout a bunch of like exposition for like no reason whatsoever.
But to also
you
be
got
like,
Alfred, you got Harry's butler, you got like
Harry's butler, who probably has a real name, but I just don't think we ever heard it. It was just like, hey,
I think it's
hey,
Nor. I think
butler,
it's
Wilfred
Wilfred or some shit.
Wilfred, get some fucking food. Like, we're having guests. Well, what kind of guests? I don't know. Just get food. Do I look like somebody who knows what food is? I just shovel things in my mouth that you bring to me.
That's your Game Boy.
I like how he told him to go get food, but then like then when MJ comes over, they just make eggs. So you're telling me he didn't have eggs? Like, I thought it was gonna be like he was gonna like DoorDash some. I know DoorDash didn't exist back then, but still, it's like
well, back in the day, it was just you had your butler DoorDash it for you.
You had Wilfred the butler to go do it for you. That was DoorDash.
It's called
it's like one of those ones like you know that he's out there. He's like, well, what the fuck does he want me to get him? And who the hell is coming over? I'm supposed to know who the fuck fucking get? I'm just a fucking butler. Yeah.
It's just that butler at some little bodega, like in his like three-piece suit.
Yeah. He's fucking just driving in the fucking limo, like just going like, what the fuck am I supposed to get? Are we getting steaks? Am I getting something nice? Does he want me to get Taco Bell? I don't know what fucking night it is, Harry.
He's coming up to like there's like a spot he has the parallel parking to, but it's in a fucking limo.
He's trying to get it through the drive-through. It's got one of those curvy ones. Fucking Harry. You could be a little bit more specific than just food, like you're some fucking caveman.
Food now.
Me hungry. Me Harry.
Harry. Me dumb. My dad thinks I'm dumb. I live up to my father. Oh my god.
But yeah. Still, this trilogy, it's just a fun time to go back to, especially if you haven't seen it in a good long while. Like myself, as I said, it's been probably literally like 14 plus years since I've watched them, so it was totally refreshing to go back to it. I've been kind of in a big Marvel mood, anyways, just from reading a bunch of random ass comics and so on. So it came at the perfect time to kick this off, especially for the fact that we all have these great memories of not only watching them back in the day, whether that be in cinema, whether that be on DVD and all the good stuff there, but it's just a nostalgic romp of a ride that is just so cool to go back, and just one of those time periods that is kind of special in itself. You don't think much of it at the time, but in hindsight, you're like, oh no, the 2000s is a very era of itself. It is its own time period of filmmaking and movies and all that kind of stuff, and a change of the guard, especially. So yeah, just going back with this, I think this is a great way to go for 600. I think it was one of those ones. I know a lot of times we do a Batman-oriented thing, but you know what? If we're not doing Batman, the next best thing is to get some Spider-Man action in there, and I think that's the fun way to go.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you came up with the idea for this, Spencer. Because like, oh yeah. We've never, for as much as we talk about Spider-Man, we haven't had that many Spider-Man focused episodes. And Marley, I'm glad you could be here for this. Before we go, do you want to throw out any of your pluggables or links or anything like that?
Once again, thanks again for having me on here. And it's like I was telling you, Spencer, like before we started recording, like I actually watched like this trilogy like about a couple months ago, but I'm glad that I waited to talk about like this amazing trilogy with my two good friends. But this is the best time I've ever had talking about like these movies. But if people made it to the end of this podcast and they're not annoyed by me in some way, I always say you could follow me pretty much everywhere on social media. Threads, Instagram, and YouTube are probably the most active ones. I'm with the username Marley Loves Film. Follow me anywhere on social media with that handle, Marley Loves Film. And then I also host a podcast called The Real Lovers Podcast, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, where I'm covering all of the movies and the Letterboxd Top 250. A little bit on hiatus right now, but I'm batch recording episodes and we'll be releasing episodes very soon. But yeah, thanks for having me, and congratulations on 600 episodes, you guys. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for all the good fun times. Make sure to go check out all Marley's good stuff there and so on. You post forever on TikTok. He outbeat me in how many posts you get, and I'm trying to work my way through that like maze of a new realm. But yeah, check that kind of stuff out. You can always go to oldmanorange.com, where you'll find all our podcasts, old animations, videos, yada, 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 and all that good jazz that we've done for beyond 600 episodes of glory. But yeah, till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Rand Dunnigan, and our special guest.
And I'm Marley Silverbrand. See ya.
And we'll see you guys some other time.
Later, folks.
Peace.